Good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Carrie Linklater. I'm your chairperson today, and I'm joined on the panel by Gisela Rempel and Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our city assessor is Mr. Dutchan Ramswack, and our admin secretary is Ms. Ellen Robo. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with your order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. And if I could ask everybody, make sure your phone is turned off. And we are going to start with 207 Dollard Boulevard.
And you affirm the event about to present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your full name.
No.
And you affirm the evidence about to present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. I can do that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dufeld and Mr. Ramswack. And whenever you would like to start. Whenever you would like to start.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, here we go. In reference to this other property, which is 207 Dollard Boulevard, the roll number is 060-609-92000. Okay, a little about the property. It's a 2.5-story home. It's a multi-family conversion. The information we have suggests that there are 3 units in this building, not to be rental units, I think. Assessment, $420,000 for a property that was built in 1914 and has a effective age that is slightly different, not by much, but slightly different. It suggests that there would have been some kind of renovation at some point in time. a little development in the basement that is actually 450 square feet for rec room, if you want to take a note of that. And I have 4 comparables here to now suggest that $420,000 may be fair. Now, I did have a little conversation, not just by email rather, back and forth with Mr. Neufeld this morning. And it was too late for us even to discuss anything, to come to any kind of a compromise, so I thought it's best to come here. That said, what do I have for comparables? They are all in the same neighborhood characteristic area. The first 2 of them are 2.5-story home. Each of these properties, however, are multifamily conversion. They vary slightly in effective age, with the exception of the last one, which is built in 1948. They also vary, as you can see, with the size of the living area, and all but one has a rec room of some sort. That is comparable number 1 that doesn't. They also vary, as you can see, with the lot size. As you can expect, they will have different values as well, different values for overall value, different values price per square foot. And those of you who have been here at different panels with me will know that I don't talk too much about averages and price per square foot. I look at the overall value and try to explain the best I can. That said, however, there is one thing that I actually went a bit further as you would expect here, when I went as far as to determine what's the price per suite for these matters here, and what's the price per square foot for each suite. So you'll get that much information from me as well. You don't have that there written anywhere, but I have it written here on my as a rough copy for my file, and I'll be able to tell you that. Okay, now what am I looking at? If I take the subject property at 420 square feet, and we have 3 units, that will be about $140 for suite. Comparable number 1 is actually $125,350 for 4 units. That's 4 units in comparable number 1. Comparable number 2 has 2 units, and that would be $207 per unit. Comparable number 5 has actually 5 units, and these, by the way, are up from our records. And that is $113,660 per suite, or 4 units. Comparable number 4 then is actually $91,900 per unit. So those are the price per unit for these properties. Now, because they vary in terms of the number of units in each of these properties, including the subject property, naturally you would think then that the size of each unit there is going to vary. I'm going to give you those numbers as well. Comparable number 1 is actually has about 472 square feet. You might think it's small, and I think so too, but that's what it is. 472 square feet for each unit. Comparable number 2 then has 904 square feet per each unit. Comparable number 3 has 597 square feet for each unit. And the last one, comparable number 4, is 484 square feet per each unit. The subject, by the way, is $817 per unit. So here again, you would know that at some point in time, if the unit vary, then I'm sure this information we would not have, because we don't compare, or we don't determine the value on an income basis. We determine by comparable market analysis and the comparable approach. So you would think that that's different. I don't have any information on that, and I'm not producing that here. The other thing I've done here, which I found very interesting, and I'd like you to take notes of it too. Comparable number 1 is actually $264.83 price per square foot per unit. Once again, that's $264.83 per square foot per unit. Comparable number 2 then is $229.20 per square feet per unit. Comparable number 3 is $190.38 per square feet per unit. And the last one, comparable number 4, is $189.87 per square feet per unit. By comparison, the subject property is $171.35 per square feet per unit. I suspect that that information is going to help you make a decision at some point in time, because I'm not making a recommendation to lower this property. Again, you'll make that determination based on what you think and the information you'll have going forward. So a couple of other things that I didn't want to settle on this just yet was because, and this might come up too, because the last assessment in 2018 was actually $398,000. Now I know that it's not necessarily going to be a reason for any kind of decision, or that you're going to take a decision based on that, but that's also part of the reason why I did not want to make any kind of recommendation on this property, knowing that in 2018 it was $398. However, a 2019 assessment was challenged and lowered to $365,000. That, Madam Chair, is my evidence, and I thank you.
Thank you. David, do you have questions?
Excuse me, yeah, just quickly. I heard you, I missed just a couple. I heard you go over them. We had, how many units were in each of your comparables?
The subject is free from our records.
Right.
Comparable number 4, we show 4 units.
Okay.
Comparable number 2 is 2 units. Comparable number 3 is 5 units. And comparable number 4 is 4 units.
What's number 1?
Number 1? Number 1 is 4 units.
And when a property like the subject sells in the marketplace, is it fair to say that they're... When a property... Yeah. When a
Want to put it closer because that's really can hear.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
When a property like this sells on the marketplace, is it reasonable to assume that it's often sold for investment property for, say someone who's trying to buy it to live in one unit and rent out the rest? Is that a common thing in our marketplace?
Well, I don't know, common. I mean, that's always been challenged. However, it's to assume that, yes, it's reasonable to assume that. However, in order to determine the value, it's also reasonable to not to assume, to use the comparable properties based on what they were sold for to determine the value of the subject property. That's also reasonable to assume. Not necessarily assume, but for our purpose and for what we do in the office, based on limited amount of information, we'd actually get limited or to none, actually, or very few, if at all, for income properties that we receive in the office. So we don't do that for small properties. Larger properties, yes.
Okay, fair enough. And it says here an effective age of 19 to 24. That would usually mean very little updates in the last, probably ever since.
Well, you know, if I've never seen the property, as I haven't inspected it,
right.
And yes, when a property has had, say, in this case, 10 years change of effective age, and I'm seeing another one, comparable number 1, for example, that has 50 years, then you would expect that that property would have more upgrades, and therefore the value is going to be different.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread.
No question. Yes, I'm just wondering if you would know what the average increase in values in this area was between the 2018 and 2020 assessment year? Or decrease?
That are shown here as 5.79%.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Ramswack, you said last year this was brought before the board in 2018?
Yeah, the 2018 was brought before the board, I think the value 2019, the 2018 was missed at $398,000.
Okay,
And
and
the 19, yes.
it was reduced to 365?
365. I do want to answer your question a bit more in detail, Madam Chair. Actually, I did bring some pictures that Mr. Newfield sent me earlier this morning that I would have given you, but since I know that he's giving you those, I'm not giving you two. The reason for these is that we couldn't possibly, if I had to make a decision and seeing these pictures, I would think that I need a whole lot more to make a determination on condition and what it is. I did relay that to him, and of course he understands that it's limited number of pictures.
Right, okay, so you didn't inspect the property?
No.
Okay. Do you have any of the listings, the MLS listings for your comparables?
No, I didn't take all the MLS listings and use properties, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, these are all that we give to the rest of the day.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, would you like to give us your presentation?
The subject, 207 Dollar. It's a triplex owned by Hal Anderson from CJOB. He bought this in 2002 and has been using it as an investment property ever since. Very little the work has been done to it since. I believe if you go to my page 8 and 9, he had to replace that staircase himself. But other than that, very little has been done since he's bought it. That staircase is the staircase to the third unit. The third unit would be, and you can see it a little better on my page 4, that third story, almost, I wouldn't have the size of it, but would be probably roughly 400 to 500 square feet on the third story. Our comparables that we have, we looked up as many triplexes as we could find, and generally when we look at direct comparison, we're always doing per price per square foot, but because triplexes are kind of all over the place for price per square foot, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to do it that way, especially considering too when it's reported there can be basement suites, and basement suites are never actually concluded in the square footage because they're not above grade. So when we on my front page here is 3 triplexes and a fourplex, I guess you'll call it, in the immediate area. And we use to get to our value, basically just use an average price for those 4 units. I did obviously notice 233 Bertrand stuck out as the price per unit was 141. It was a little higher. I did, if you go to my third page, the MLS listing shows it as the first unit is paying $1,350 plus $225 for utilities and garage, plus the 2 units, one being a basement unit and a second floor unit at $850 and $750. My page 2 is showing a listing for the subject property that was active today at $1,225 a month for the main unit. So there's a difference of $125 per month that they can actually get in terms of income between those 2 ones. And the reason I'm bringing this one up is obviously because that one would, if we were just to look at 233 Bertrand, that would skew our numbers up a lot higher. But I would argue that 233 Bertrand is much better, or better than the subject. I wouldn't say much better. When these properties sell, like I had mentioned earlier, it's often somebody looking to live in one unit and rent out 2, or somebody just looking to rent out all 3. Triplexes in Winnipeg are generally being approved, or haven't been approved for a long time. These are all essentially things that are properties that are grandfathered, going back 30, 40 years. And when they exist as this type of asset, they generally continue to be used that way because it already has the approval and it's not generally going to go backwards. One of the major reasons why these aren't being approved anymore is actually for because of the huge code issues that this would essentially be seeing in the modern marketplace. This example of these wood staircases have been a violation of Canadian code since the 2018 code. Essentially, if you're building on a building now, you can't use wooden staircases. I'm trying to get that point across, it just took a little too long. Our average price at 119 is, I think, a very good indicator of how much what this would sell for, as this would go for a price per unit. And looking at triplexes is the best way to do it because it would have a similar unit style where it would be a main floor, second floor, and either a third floor or a basement unit for the third unit. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ramswell, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Always so difficult to actually get a question based on the comparables that we have here, and I didn't get a chance to look at them. Of course, you understand that. I'm trying to figure out here, because I stay away from average all the time. I look at you doing averages here. If you were to suggest a property in the first four that you have, because you have the multiple listing, it looks like,
Yep.
which of these properties do you think is most comparable to your subject property?
Physically,
Understanding, of course, that you don't even have a 2.5-story as a comparable.
right? No, obviously, yeah, and that's obviously that's the difficulty when we're doing this. That's the point I was getting across is that it's the 3 units is what people are looking for, so that's why we were looking for 3-unit comparables. But you're right, this isn't exactly a 2.5-story. I have one that's a 2-story there. I would say 259 Notre Dame is probably the most comparable. Just trying to see if that third unit is in the basement. Or in the kitchen. Yeah. Right, possible 3-plex or 4-plex. Okay. So right, none of them are identical in terms of construction, no, but they are a similar use. So that would be how the marketplace would look at when it's being purchased, so that's why we chose them.
So once again, I've observed that you actually picked the one that is in the lowest value, and this is even lower than the average price. You have observed that. Now,
No, we
I'm
use
not
an
asking a
average.
question, I'm just
Sorry.
making that observation,
Yeah.
right? All right, moving on to the other properties that you see are different parts of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm seeing also that there are in fact 2.5-story
Correct.
homes here. Which of these 2.5-story homes then would you suggest that is most highly comparable to the subject property?
I didn't do a full analysis of these ones. They're all 2.5 stories. They look all to be in the West End, about Wolseley or so. They would be very comparable in construction, and that's kind of why we're showing. That's the concept behind the two different. The other areas in Winnipeg section is really just for support because they are more suitable and more comparable to the actual subject. However, when you're looking for something in that area, then you're looking for a triplex, you'd be looking at the market directly for triplexes nearby. So that way, why we put more weight on the top 4 comparables.
Okay. Now, I've noticed here the age of these homes. They were built just 100 years ago.
Yep.
Do you know if any of these properties that you've also given as comparables, and that's the bottom one, the 2.5-story, what kind of improvements were done to any of these, if at all?
No, I don't know what the improvements are done. There are some little small descriptions. They're all rental properties, so generally when you're looking at a rental property, you're not going to be putting in the same finishes because you're not even living in there yourself. So rental properties, I think when you're looking at the lower end, it's fair to analyze the lower end of the range because you know that a rental property would also sell at the lower end of the range considering its condition.
But it's reasonable to assume that number 2, 3, and 4, which is Barber, Langside, and Spin Street, reasonable to assume that those properties being so low in terms of value or value per unit,
They would likely
unfortunately have no kind of improvements done to them. Is it reasonable to assume that?
Yeah, they would likely be pretty original from them. There would be the conversion, and much like the subject, there was very little done to this since the conversion of the triplex. So there would be, I would be completely speculating as to say when they were made into a triplex, but there would have been some conversion made to make it a triplex because you have to properly demise it. So it wouldn't be completely original in 1905 because they obviously weren't built for that function.
And my final question is that if you had the time to take pictures as you did or somebody did, why would you want to show kitchen, bathroom, bedroom?
Generally, we're not, as the Appraisal Institute doesn't allow us to take images without written consent of the tenants. So when we took pictures, the idea was to get nothing that was occupied. So we would have actually needed to give a written consent 24 hours prior in order to take these pictures. So we did the best we could with what we were allowed to do that, and that's all we had. I don't know why he didn't take a picture of the vacant kitchen, and that's a good question.
Okay, I think maybe we put some clarity, Madam Chair, and what to expect, so I'm going to leave that rest to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
On your page 6, photograph on the bottom, it appears to be a basement room. Is there a bedroom? Is that another suite? Do you have any idea what that is for?
It does look like a basement suite, doesn't it?
Yeah.
My understanding was that there was no basement suite, but Mr. Dutchin had said that there was rec rooms in the basement.
We have on record 450 square feet of basement finish in this property.
Yeah, so
That's quite a big room, isn't it?
right.
20 by 20-something.
I didn't get to go into this myself. This wasn't me who took the pictures, but I suppose one of the units could have a basement portion, but that doesn't really seem to make much sense. So there is something down there, but whether or not it's a unit, I don't know.
No
Part of the
worries.
unit, I don't know.
And to the best of your knowledge, is that a shared laundry?
Yes.
Okay. And then I was on page, sorry, go back one. Page 5. Do you know, through any information, whether those are original hardwood floors, that they've been redone?
I would imagine, looking at them, that they look original. Well, maybe preserved.
But you don't know
but they definitely look
specifically.
original. Sorry?
You don't know specifically?
I don't know specifically. I know that my house that was built in around that time looks very similar to it, though. But that's anecdotal. So I would imagine, looking in that you look at it and see that it's original. That would be my first impression when you're walking in there, being showed to it. You would see it and think, "Oh, that is an original flooring."
Top photo, page 5.
Yeah.
Baseboard. Do those look like heaters or baseboards?
Those look like baseboards and a radiator.
I'm looking to see radiant heat,
Radiant heat, yeah.
in addition to the actual old forced water radiator under the window.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that would be an addition, obviously.
Yeah, there would have been work done after 1905 or 1914. Sorry, for sure.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm wondering if you can take me through this. So there's 3 suites in this house that you're aware of.
Right.
So there's, I'm assuming, one on the main floor, one on the second floor, and one on the half-story
Correct.
3rd floor. Can you tell me the square footage of each of those and the rents that are charged for each?
I have the main floor is $12.25. I don't have the rents charged for 2 and 3. I asked the question of them and I didn't get an answer back from them. It was the gross rent. It was back in 2012. Was $22,000 a year. I did see that, but that was older, so I didn't think it was very relevant today.
And that doesn't include utilities?
No.
And do you have the square footage of those suites?
I don't know. I should have brought that for sure.
And what did you say these cost or price per square foot per unit was?
Price per square
Foot?
Price per square
Per
foot.
the average price per square foot per unit?
Price per
Did
square.
you say 190 something?
No. We were looking at, was it 190?
119.
Yeah. All I brought forward was price per unit, and then a price per square foot of the whole building. So I didn't even look into that analysis.
Okay, and can you tell me when these pictures were taken?
Be about a year ago. It was for a 2019 hearing.
And I'm assuming the owner does not live here.
No, he does not.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Page 2 of your brief.
Yep.
There's a picture from the property management.
Yep.
This is the
That's the main unit.
it's the main unit.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you inspect this property?
I did not know.
Did you inspect it on the previous cycle?
It's been inspected by Bram, Neufeld from Colliers International, but not myself.
Okay, so you can't speak to the overall condition?
Not with accuracy.
Okay. Did you inspect any of your comps?
Nope, I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 259 Edison.
Do you swear in or do you affirm? Please state your full name.
Tom Sampson.
And you swear to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Do you have any evidence for the panel? Or is it just verbal information?
Well, yeah, I've got the one here. I don't know why I have the other sheets here, but this is a post one, so I've got the one. So I'll have to share this.
Okay. Do you want copies made or just one sheet?
Yeah, we'll share and then you can make them after. Is that pull it out?
It's probably easier if I do.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Ramswack, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, seems to be a very big discrepancy in what we have with the sale price. And pardon me, let me start off first of all, Madam Chair, by starting off with the subject. 259 Pedestal Avenue with roll number 040 00320000. Okay. All right, a little bit more about the subject property. What we have here is a two-story multi-family conversion with a little change in effective age from the time it was built. 336 square feet of full basement and some development in the basement. We have a lot size that is 12,000 square feet. And we have an assessment of $488,000. What I'm seeing as a discrepancy here right now is why is it that we have a $509,000 as a sale price on this property in 2017, and I'm handed something here that shows $385,000. Pardon me, this is a comparable, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a while I was wondering if. Okay, good enough. So we put this aside. All right, let me continue then, Madam Chair. So what we have here is a sale price from our record, land titles office sale. As you know, it's a post-reference sale. So we're not going to. Pardon me. In this case, I'm losing it this today. It's not a post-reference sale. It's a sale within the reference year. With hopefully, as we look at things like this, we normally have time adjustment on that. I didn't prepare any such thing for time adjustment, even just what the value should be in the time adjustment. Why? Because we're looking here at a assessment of $488,000, which was, for all intents and purposes, was done and sent out to the homeowner for $488,000 for 2020. In a situation like this, when I look at it and I start analyzing this property based on what I have in front of me here, based on this one sheet brief, this is all I thought of doing without checking a great deal more. I did, however, double check and see it was $509,000 from land titles office sale, and I also read some notes to know that yes, it was in fact sold. Well, recently, anyways. And that's all I need to actually find out when I start looking at the comparables. So what we have for comparables? Two of them are in the same neighborhood characteristic area, and two of them are, I believe, perhaps in the close by or not so far distant away. The subject property is a 2-story home, and as you can see, the first two comparables are 2-story, the second is a 2.5, and the last one is a 2-story home. So typically, I would put my most weight on the properties that are more highly similar, which would be the three 2-story properties. Now, also what I'm seeing, I have to explain this. I did say, as I see this here, I'm going to start looking at it. I've noticed that the comparable number 2 is the same as the subject property. That was sold actually in 2017, May 1st, and I stand to be corrected, Madam Chair, when I said that I didn't check to find out what the time adjustment would be. And this is some ways that we can do it, and we often do it. So we see as the property was sold, if we were to try to do that, a property sold for $509,000, we have a value on April 1st on or around the $516,000. However, we're still looking at $488,000 as the assessed value, which is being supported. Now, if we look at, and again, I don't dwell a great deal on price per square foot and that, the subject property is $146. At least I'm not going to do that unless I'm being cornered and I have to, when I don't have much more to go by. And I see then that at 146, and based on what is sold for, I can talk about a little bit about properties that have actually sold before the reference date. See, Madam Chair, it so happens that if we don't use these sales, certainly the ones before the reference date, how else can we look at the other properties? And so we have to rely on these properties, the sold properties, to determine the value of other properties to determine the fairest assessment. So this is why we're looking at it this way, and I'm not going to be able to continue much more than suggest that when we look at what it was sold for, what we're assessing for, I'd like to suggest that it's 488 is fair, and I ask that you confirm that 488. That would be my evidence. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, the properties that you have comparisons, you have pictures inside, or
Speak into the speak into that so I can hear you. Thank you.
the properties you have comparison, you have pictures inside?
I'm still not hearing. Would you pull that closer, please?
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, and I can tell you if I hear you.
Okay. The properties that you have for comparison, you have pictures inside?
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay. Do you have pictures inside?
No, I didn't bring any pictures of this compound.
Do you know what the rental NOI is on
No,
that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Mr. Ramsey, you're still got your Manitoba appraisal license still, right?
I do.
You do. Okay. You do commercial or just residential?
Well, I work in the residential section.
Okay, so no commercial license.
I've
then.
done that before. No, I don't have.
You don't have commercial. Okay, I just want to clarify that. Okay, when you do commercial properties, a residential appraiser cannot do a commercial property because you need a license for it, because a commercial property is based on the NOI, that's net operating income. Okay, banks need to know what the NOI is before they'll give you financing for a building, because if the NOI does not support the payments, it doesn't support the value, so therefore they won't give you a loan. Okay, now on these comparisons that you have here, you have no pictures of the inside. You don't know what the rents are, and the rents are very important.
Sir, this is part of your presentation.
Oh, okay.
This is just asking questions of Mr. Ramswack.
Okay. So no rental income and no pictures.
No, I have no rental income.
Okay.
We don't in these smaller properties. We don't establish the value based on the rental income on these properties. It has to be larger apartments and that.
Well, but a 4-suite is considered commercial.
Sir, this is residential today.
Okay. But I'm just trying to establish for appraisal, for market value.
Okay. Mr. Ramswack did not appraise this property. He's given it an assessment value.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Whitford?
Did you say you inspected the property?
No, I did not. I did not inspect.
Outside or inside?
No, that's correct.
So no comment on the condition?
No.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
questions?
Did you say the property was purchased on May the 4th, 2018?
It was purchased on May 2017, and this is I'm using the May 17 sale to determine the value of this property.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I do have one more question, I'm sorry. Can you tell me what the average increase in the value of the homes in the Rossmere area was?
$2.36%.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Bramswack, you're well, I'm going to say obviously that comp 2 is your best comparison, the sale.
Well, the comps 2 is in fact the, sometimes we rely on that, sometimes we give homeowners that kind of information to say we have actually done it specifically to determine the value, and that's what keeps coming up. So we see 516, and so Madam Chair, when I see figures like that, I don't know that I should go on any further when I'm looking at to defend the $488,000 assessment. Yeah, that's my logic behind it, Madam Chair.
Comp 3 and 4, they're pretty far away.
Well, I guess I'll have to check the map to figure that out. You would have a map.
Well, they're out, yeah, and they're actually in a different neighborhood.
Yeah, different.
Okay. Did you bring the MLS listings?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Thank you. If you'd like to give a short presentation?
Yeah, the present property, it was sold for $509 in May 27th, 2017, based on you could build 20 units there. But you only can build 12 units there, and if you look at the square footage of the land area, it's 2.5 times everybody else's. So basically, this building is original shape, it's original coverage, original hardwood floor. It's in decent shape, but it's all original. And basically, it was going to be a knockdown, this building, because there's apartment blocks next door, there's a couple of new condominium units, same side, just down the street. And basically, the value is based on 20 units, but it can only be 12 units on that property. So the value was originally what it was sold for was based on 20 units, but it's only 12 units. Yeah.
Did you have anything else to add?
That's one.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramswack, did you have any
Thank you, Madam
questions?
Chair. I don't think I'm understanding this when you say this property has 12 units.
No. If you look at the land area, it's about 12,500 square feet
okay, that's
versus the other comparables.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This building was bought an understanding you can put 20 units.
Oh, I see.
But when it came down to everything with the sewer coming in and what the volume is, you only could put 12 units on it. So therefore, it's a knockdown building. You know what I mean? Like, do you see what I mean? Like,
Well, you give me the evidence, so I'm trying to figure out now what that has to do with the 12 units based on the...
well, because there was an appraisal done on it, okay, based on 20 units, was $509,000, right? For 20 units to build on a property. But you only can build 12 units on it, so the value has gone down.
So you get an appraisal report, which do you have that appraisal report to show the panel?
The original one is $509,000.
Do you have the appraisal report?
Not the original one on me now, no. But because you can build less units now, that appraisal is not worth as much as the original one.
Is it reasonable to assume that if you build 12 units, you can build larger units. If you build 20 units, you build smaller units. Is that a reasonable assumption?
No, certain areas you only can build so many units, depends on your sewer consumption. Like right now, there is, for example, right now there's example on Creek Bend Road. There's 5 acres, but the sewer cannot handle 20 units, and they gotta have a pumping station, and that's a few $1 million. So what I'm saying is here, the value is based, 509,000 sale was based on 20 units, but you can't do 20 units on that anymore. You can do 12 units.
Okay, that's your evidence, but...
Yeah, the building was bought to knock it down and put new units in.
At the end of the day, I'm going to leave it all up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
So let me make sure I understand you then. You're suggesting the owners bought this property with the expectation they could put 20 units on that particular property.
That's what they were told, yeah.
Which is 12,266.
Yeah, because there's some other units just like 4 or 5 doors over that are 20 units.
Yep.
Some is apartments, some is condos, and there's a third one. But I guess because with the saturation, you're only letting so many units go because what you can do for the consumption of the sewer.
Let me keep going.
Yeah,
And so they paid 509,000 with that expectation.
that's right.
Now they've discovered that can't do it, can only put 12 units on.
That's right.
So in their mind, the property is no longer worth 509,000.
Yeah, because it was the original appraisal was based on 509,000 for 20 units, but now that has changed.
And yet they continue to generate revenue from 3 units on the property or 2 units?
Well, there's 4 units altogether.
Oh, there's 4 units?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's 4 units, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Okay.
the rents are low there, but it was just bought to float it along and knock it down, till you have all your plans and everything, and then that's it, yeah.
Do you have a value in mind?
About 442.
Thank you for that. No further
Okay.
questions, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Farnborough?
Yes, so it was the owner's intention to knock it down.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how much it would cost to knock it down?
Probably an average, like, probably around, everything said down around 22,000 to knock it down, yeah.
Can you tell me for the 4 units that are in the property, what does this building look like? You say it's a 2-story multifamily, and then as your comparison, you have a duplex?
Yes.
Does it look anything like this?
It's very similar, except, very similar. You just walk through the front, and you got 2 suites on the main and then 2 suites on the top, yeah.
Okay.
It was built in 1960.
I see that the effective age is listed at 1975, though, so there must have been some renovations.
Nope, I've got it even down in Mr. Ramsey's 1959.
1959 is the year it was built.
It was built, yeah.
And then underneath it says effective age is 1975. So
No.
that normally indicates that there have been some upgrades or,
It's original,
okay.
yeah.
Can you tell me for the 4 units that are in this particular property what the rents are
There are, I think, about 2,200
for each of the 4
total.
in total?
Total, yeah.
And does that include utilities?
Everything except for hydro.
I guess you don't have any pictures of the property.
No, I don't. Yeah, but it's got like the original hardwood floors, the original veneering, kind of darker, not oak, but birch looking, I guess, on the
Okay.
hardwoods and stuff, yeah.
Okay. Would you happen to know what the 2018 assessment was?
20, no, I don't.
Okay. We can look that up.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought if you had it on the
Oh,
top.
okay, yeah, no.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay,
Fine.
And my questions have been asked and answered. Thank you.
okay.
Would you allow me to the summation, Madam Chair? Summation?
If you wish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Now, I'm looking at the one sheet evidence that he has that is supported at some values. I'm hearing that he's talking about land value, that you're looking at for future development and future value. And his future value is not going to give them what they expect to have. I see no appraisal report. I see nothing from land titles office. I see nothing from the permits branch, for example, to make this what is legal, because they also determine from permit whether or not you can get whatever he's talking about. But I also see that it's important here, Madam Chair, in this one property that he has in Kent. I'm looking at a 33-foot lot by 110 feet. I'm looking at 3,600 square feet. If you're looking at as comparable to build properties, we can see that there's going to be a tremendous amount of adjustment. I want to bring that to light here, that if you want to look at this property for whatever reason, I don't know, are we looking at it to determine the land value, or are we looking at it to determine what it's going to be rented for? But we're seeing there, if you're looking at land value, we're seeing up to 600 square feet versus a 12,000 square feet for whatever development you want for an apartment block. So that's what I want to point out to you, that perhaps you shouldn't be looking at a future value in this property, but what was April 1st, 2018 assessment on the property or value. Also, the fact that it was sold for $400,000 previously. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do you wish for a summation?
Yes. My comparable, they're asking $425. It sold for $40,000 less than what they're asking, and for $385, makes $3,300 a month income, and tenants pay all their own utilities except for water. And it has a double detached garage. And it appears to look fairly good condition from the exterior of the picture.
Okay, and you're giving evidence now, so.
Yeah, well, that would be my evidence, yeah.
Yeah, but
Question,
this was
yeah.
just your summation, not
Yeah.
giving evidence.
No,
But
that's
anyway,
right, yeah.
That's fine. Thank you for coming today.
Okay, thank you.
And 191 Hawthorne?
You have the option to swear in the Bible with your hand. Please state your full name.
Jerry Marks?
And you swear you're going to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
You too, yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Meet you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramsdorf, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just I can proceed right away. 191 Poplar Avenue with the rule number 1408299600. It's a 1.75 story multi-family conversion. A little bit change in effective age, 1,680 square feet. What we have here is a part area for the basement, and I should give you that. Sometimes you look at a part basement, you wonder, is it just a little dugout or what is it? Actually, in the basement area is 520 square feet. Considering that it's a 1.5 story home, there will be an additional area somewhere. We also have a small development in the basement of 312 square feet. And we're looking at a lot size here that is larger than the 3 comparables and smaller than the 4th one. And that's 5,000 square feet. We're looking at $199,000 as the assessed value of the property. And a little bit more about assessment on this property is that the last assessment, by the way, was $125,000. I don't see it being contested. It's the first time that I have a record here that this property being contested on 191 Poplar. So we have that, and previously it was actually 168. That said, the 4 comparables that I have here, 2 of them are in the same neighborhood characteristic area, that's comparable 1 and 3. and the other one are in just slightly different area. There are two properties that are 2-story, and one of them that are 1.5-story, so they're, pretty close. Age-wise, they're also a little bit of effectively a change on comparable number 1, 3, and that's the only 2. And the other ones, there's no change on them. The living area is slightly different, and first comparable has a park area as well, and the other ones are full basement, as you can see. Now, the unadjusted sale price on this property, they range from a low of 160 to 178. The one at 160, as you see, is a slightly smaller property. The other ones, because they vary in age, that's why they vary in values. The subject property is sort of in the middle, what it looks like in terms of size. And I looked at $108 a square foot. Then when you look at the size that are slightly different, and they range from 160 as the adjusted price, that is April 1st, 2018, to $248,000. And I see that the subject property is more or less in the middle, and middle as in terms of value, middle as in terms of the size of the home. The age are around the same thing in the same area. And 199, based on a little time adjustment between the last year assessment to now, or last assessment or value to now, it seems fair at 199. That's my presentation, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any questions, sir?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? Okay.
Well, yeah, go ahead and put it closer, please.
First of all, thank you for including comp 1, because when you see my analysis there, that was one of the comps that I had as well.
Okay.
Feel that it's very, very similar. It's in close proximity to the subject property and so on. Just curious as to the inclusion of a couple of the properties that are outside of the neighborhood area there. From your experience in that specific area, would you say that the properties in the Talbot Gray area or the Glen Elm area are typically assessed higher than in the Chalmers area?
I don't know that I can actually say that right now. We try to at least get the properties that are in a highly similar area as well as other similarities or characteristics of the property. That said, what is important when we go out of an area is because we're not getting the properties that are going to have an effective age of the properties that are similar. Effective age is very important. Perhaps this is one reason it is up front, and then we go down to the characteristic. So when we look at that, and we look at the properties that are 2-story or 1.5-story home, when yours is 1 3/4. And when we have looked sufficiently and there is nothing there, then we can go. But as long as there are enough sales in the area that mirrors the characteristic of your property, then we have no reason to go. So, are there other properties possibly in the area that are built around the same time, same age, and so on? Maybe not.
Yes,
I can believe.
Yeah, and I understand that. My question was more in terms of the general area, Chalmers being sort of really the heart of Elmwood, close to Henderson, in comparison to Glen Elm, which is a much more affluent area, closer to the river, with, in my opinion, property values that are much higher. Is that taken into consideration in terms of when you select comparables?
Allow me to look and see by the neighborhood characteristic area, so I can try to answer that question for you. 409 is in fact on the east side of Main Street, the west side, I beg your pardon, so that would be...
It's the east side of Henderson.
On the west side, right?
East side of Henderson.
Is it east side of Henderson?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, what am I seeing here? That's 409, that's Glen Elm. Well, actually, yes, I would think that it's west or closer to the river is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
So then that would be west side of Henderson, no?
Oh, sorry, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
East side of the river, west side of Henderson. That's
Yeah,
correct,
for a while I was doubting myself here. Okay. All right, so that's what I'm seeing here. Indeed, any properties that are actually closer to the river would be perhaps would be more desirable. But I'm also looking at 401. Now, where is 401 in my map? 401 is actually the west side of Henderson, right? So I'm seeing that. So if there's going to be a little bit of location adjustment, that's perhaps to be considered. What else? Of course, you probably have another question for me, right?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of the comparisons as well, you have two properties here that are significantly newer than the property in question here, with effective ages of 1943 and 1953. Just curious as to whether there were not better comparables that were more similar to the age of the subject property.
Okay. All right, let's take one at a time. 1943 and 1943 is, in fact, that was the year it was built. There has been no renovation that we have on record to suggest that we should change that. Indeed, it is lower than the 1925, or rather higher than 1925. Yours is lower. And so we're seeing at $210,000. And very simply, when I'm looking at this here, where would I make the adjustment? Where would I think that your property should be lower than this, than $210,000 that we see on comparable number 2? And I see that I can make an adjustment for the size of the lot versus 3,800 square feet, and I can make a slight adjustment on the size of it versus 1,353, and I make those adjustments, and I can still see that another $10,000 over what you have on your home. It looks pretty close to me.
One final question for you. In terms of the values with respect to multifamily conversions versus single-family homes, do you typically see them as being comparable in terms of value, or is there a difference between the two?
No, we prefer to have the properties that are compare a single family with single family, or compare multifamily with multifamily, or multi-conversion for that matter.
I understand that, but in terms of the value of those properties, in your experience, are multifamilies worth more than single families, or are they similar in nature?
That's a general thing. Reality is that you could have a multi-family home that would have the same square footage built around the same time in the same area, that would probably have a greater value than that of a single family, depending on the condition and renovation.
But all things being equal in terms of age, square footage, condition, do they typically sell for similar prices?
You know, it's the best I can do to answer that question. I will answer the same way to you. I have to actually look at it. The reality is that a single-family home would have, hopefully, I would have a different value than that, and it would be compared with other single-family homes to determine that value. Without actually looking at them and knowing, I don't know that I can say one is higher than the other, but I did say that you could get a single-family home, and I'm sure they're out there, that are higher than that of a multi-conversion, and vice versa. Absolutely, you can see them being different.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
I just want to ensure that I understand. Did you say that the assessment for this property was $185,000 in 2018?
It was $185,000 in 18 and 19, that's correct.
And when was it 168?
It was $165,000 previously.
Oh, 106.
68, I beg your pardon, previously.
So that would have been for 2016?
16 and 17.
Okay, and I just want to understand, so this comparison number 4 on Carmen Avenue and Glen Elm, you say that this area may be a little more profitable and popular than the subject property, but if I take a look at this comparison, it seems to me that it's working the other way around, because the effective age of the homes is 1925 for both the subject property and the comparable, plus the 72 Carmen Avenue home has a full basement that's finished and a detached single garage.
Which one is the other one you're talking about?
Comparison number 4,
No, okay, and the other one is?
the subject
Oh, you're still
property.
referring to number 4, are you?
I'm looking at comparison number 4 compared to the subject property.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, what is the average increase in the assessment value of Chalmers versus Glen Elm?
They would be the same average for the entire market region.
And what would that be? Is that the 2.36%?
Yeah, that would be 2.36%.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
So, Mr. Amswack, out of your 4 comparables, which one are you relying on as the best?
Oh, okay, let's see now. 401, 401, 401. I think number 3 is a superior property. I see an effective age that is vastly different, that's for sure. That's eliminated. And then I can see 403, now here is 403 in Talbot, probably it will be close. So, I would think that it's, looking at it the way it is here, anywhere between comparable number 1 and comparable number, mind you, Glen River. When I'm looking at it, this property has to be somewhere sort of in between the Riverton Avenue and even lower than the one on Windsor, which is what that one is there because it's newer. Everything that's what I'm looking at here, when you look at all the 4 properties, Madam Chair, it seems as though that I require adjustment on each one of these, and because I didn't really do the adjustment on them, to answer the question right away and tell you which one it is I want to put weight on, I try to determine the value at 199. I would, when you have a different area, say between comparable number 1 and number 4, Madam Chair.
Okay. And you don't have the ML listings for your comps?
No,
No. Do you know how many units are in the subject property?
I didn't check that, no.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to give us your leadership.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking the time to review my appeal. I'm the owner of 191 Poplar. I've owned the property since 2010. In that time, I've seen the assessed value of the property increase from $119,000 to $199,000. I'm appealing the assessment based on the fact that I feel the assessment value is sort of set artificially high, and I have a number of arguments why, which I'll point out here. I'd like to call to your attention the first part of my analysis. I had the opportunity to conduct research on similar properties to 191 Poplar within the Chalmers neighborhood to review whether or not 191 Poplar was assessed at a value similar to these properties. I understand that we use sales data in terms of making the assessments, not looking at comparable assessed properties. However, I think it demonstrates that and provides context that 191 Poplar, based on the fact that these properties here in the same areas that are built around the same time are under 1,900 square feet and over 1,000 square feet, all have an assessed value that is significantly lower than 191 Poplar. The second piece on that first page there demonstrates sales of similar properties, specifically in the Chalmers neighborhood with similar age, square footage, and similar in structure. They, excluding the 2 outliers that are 2 properties on Riverton that have been substantially renovated, the average sale price for these is $173,000 or $26,000 less than 191 Poplar. These may or may not be multifamily properties. As the sales book that the city provides us to look at the recent sales does not point out whether they're multifamily or not. However, as the assessor mentioned, there isn't necessarily a large difference in terms of value between a multifamily and a single family. However, in terms of the properties that are provided here, they're all very, very similar to the property in question. And then finally, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes on my subject property as well. The assessment notes that the property has a finished basement. I'll call you to the attention of the second page on my assessment there. Those are pictures of the basement. As you can see, they are not finished. In fact, it's fully unfinished. This should be taken into consideration when assessing the value of the property. I've also noted that on the assessment document provided by the assessor that there's a half bath. In fact, that's inaccurate. It's a 2-suite duplex with 1 full bath in each. So that part is inaccurate as well. I'm not sure whether there has been an inspection at some point, but I'm not sure where that information is coming from, but it's inaccurate. Finally, in terms of increasing the effective age, there's been minimal renovations done to the property. In fact, the only renovations of substance since I purchased the property was the replacement of shingles, new eaves and fascia, and a coat of paint on the front of the house. I acknowledge that would have some impact on the value of the property, but not anything significant, and certainly not something that would justify an increase of value of $80,000 over a 10-year period. So what I've included here for your reference, in terms of the first page, has a listing of the properties and the analysis that I have done. The subsequent pages there will demonstrate some of the comparables. My property is on the second page. You'll see as 191 Poplar. And some supporting documentation in terms of the previous assessment and the 2020 assessment on the final page as well.
Is that okay?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Did you have questions, Mr. Chairman?
Just a little bit, Madam Chair. Just for the record, I didn't say the property between single-family home and multi-conversion are similar in value. Right? Like it can be different, and you can't do it without things. No, you're not close to the same value. I don't know what it is, but you're not close. Do you live there?
No, I do not.
Okay, so it's rent. How much is it rented for?
$725 each of the suites.
How many suites?
2 suites.
2 suites at $725 each.
Yes.
Okay. Plus utilities or included?
Water is included.
What? Just water?
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
So they pay the rest of the hydro,
Hydro and
gas?
gas, yes.
All right. No, that's not my question. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. McGrath.
Looking at the photos, your first page of basement pictures.
Yes, sir.
What is the black material on the walls and on the stairs? Is that just a photograph quality, or is there something there? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there is foundational issues with the property, so there is water that is leaking in.
Is that mold?
There has been some mold issues. We've been trying to take care of it. It is popping up again. But
So all along here?
oh no, not along here. This picture here certainly. That's
which
just the
one is
quality.
that, sir?
Sorry, the one on the upper right side.
Right, down in the corner there?
Yes.
That would be water-based mold.
Yes.
Behind the wall.
Yeah, and what we've done is obviously some of the work with the eavesdrops is helping to address that, and we're doing some grading as well to try to address it. But ultimately, the property's likely going to need some significant foundation work to address it.
Have you, I haven't seen it, but maybe it's here and I've missed it. Have you identified a value you think we should be assessing that?
I honestly think the first comparable that the assessor had provided is likely most accurate and most similar to the property in question.
So you're thinking 160?
I think that'd be a fair value, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
So you indicated you had purchased this property in 2010,
Yes.
and since the time you have purchased it, the basement was never finished and there was never a half bath?
No, ma'am.
Okay. When did you replace the shingles and the eaves and the fascia and paint the front of the house?
Would have been about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Sir, page 1 of your brief, you've got listed Gordon, Macintosh, Riverton, etc. Are those all multifamily?
I'm not sure if they're multifamily or not. I received that data from the sales book that the city has. The assessor would like to be able to confirm that,
No.
but they would be similar in terms of size, in terms of the age, in terms of the structure. But they may very well be single family.
Okay. So page 2 of your brief is the condition of your basement.
Yes.
So you don't have any bathrooms in the basement?
No.
Right. And the entire basement is unfinished?
Correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Ramswack, have you noted that then?
So what is the question, Madam Chair?
The appellant is stating under oath that the basement is not finished. And
I've taken a note to remove it, Madam
Okay,
Chair. The reason
thank you.
being is that based on some notes that we have here, that was an estimate, and considering that it's a rental property, never lived here before, so more than likely when somebody left something in a mailbox and there was no response, we typically put that in. So I would believe him based on this. So we'll take that to the half a bath out, and we'll take that work room out. I suspect with 312 square feet, probably about $5,000 off right there. I'm guessing.
Okay, thank you. Sir, can you describe the interior of your property?
Sure. Certainly on the main floor, it's in relatively decent shape. I have a very good tenant in there that takes care of the property. I haven't done any enhancements. He's the first tenant that I had when I bought the property. I haven't done any sort of renovations or anything like that, but it is in decent shape.
Okay, sorry, I'm just going to stop you there. Can you just describe the condition of the kitchen, for instance, in both units?
Sure. So the kitchen, likely, I'd say the age of the cabinets and so on in the first floor suite is probably, I'd say, probably 80s, 90s vintage, but in good condition. The upper suite is a bit more dated and in rougher condition. The tenant has been there for a long period of time as well, but does not maintain the suite to the same condition as the first tenant. The kitchen's a bit older in that property and is not in as good condition. It's going to require some significant renovations once that tenant moves out.
Okay. And are there laundry facilities in the basement?
There is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just for the main floor tenant. He's the one who has access to the basement.
So you've had long-term tenants in both units?
Yes.
Okay, so you haven't experienced any vacancy in the property?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Leave it with us.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, 834 Wolseley.
Please state your full name. Just like you have to represent. You said you have to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Do you have any evidence for the panel?
Well, I've got, I need it.
5 is great.
Oh, okay, 5? Okay, well, that's 3, that's 2, right, that's 5, okay. And 5.
Do you have a copy for yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And whenever you're ready, Mr. Ransdell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, in respect to the property at 834 Woolsley, with the roll number 120-927-23000. The 2.5-story home in Woolsley and backing on to the famous Sinwan River, the very expensive Sinwan River. Property built in 1912. We have a slight effective age change in the property. Instead of expected property being 100 years old, you'd have some changes to it over time. 12,000 square feet is the lot size. $591,000 is assessed value. Now, any attempts, and all attempts that I have made to find properties that are in the Sinwan River, certainly in Woolsley, that would be a 2.5-story home, have come up short. In fact, I come up with nothing that is on the Sinwan River that would be a 2.5-story home built around the same time with that square footage. It might be something differently. And if there were properties that were there in the past, it was either too dated sale that you couldn't be able to pull up anyways. And one in particular, I think I had a conversation with Mr. Fines earlier. And he has found a property on which he's going to at least give us his evidence, so I'm not going to say much about that, except that because it is a post-reference sale, and that is the reason why that property did not show up in the records and so on for this purpose. That said, the 4 properties that I have in the Woolsley area, as you can see there, they are all, the 3 of them are 2.5-story home, and the last one is a 2-story home, and they are significantly smaller than that of the subject property, although you see that the effective age has changed a little bit. I'm just waiting until you set in again. Alright, thank you. Alright. Each of these properties have some development in the basement. As you can see, the rest of them are the characteristics of the area. All of the other comparables are much smaller in the lot size. Now we're looking then at values. So what are we looking at values? $476,000 for comparable number 1, $454,000 for comparable number 2, $426,000 for comparable number 3, and $382,000 for comparable number 4. Now, based on economy of scale, and we look at what the property values are for the comparables, that's the adjusted selling price, that range from a very low at 382 to the highest one that we have at $476,000. The question is then, why is the subject property $100 and say $50,000 or so higher, or more than that for that matter, higher than that of the subject property? And one of those big factors there is the fact that it is on the river, and that will make a very big adjustment on that property. That's why I decided to leave it as it is. I tried to, by the way, I did recommend $580,000. I'd like to honor that, unless you think otherwise, Madam Chair. So it is $591, and I'm doing it because of the last assessment being $560,000.
Sorry, the previous was 560?
Right.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you're giving a recommendation now?
$580,000.
$580,000? Mr. Fines, are you willing to accept $580,000?
I was, okay, based on what I've uncovered, and, well, the fact that at the time, as Deutschen had mentioned, that at the time of assessment there was nothing comparable. However, post, I guess, April 1st, there was a disposition of a property that has very, very similar attributes to...
Okay, but we don't look at post-reference sales.
I believe it sold it was on the market in November of 2017, and it was conditionally sold as of January of 2018, and I guess the disposition didn't get finalized or updated to land titles or property records until, I think it was April.
So you would like to
16th.
continue?
Well, the trouble that I have is okay, I thought it was a fair assessment last year until I came across
Okay,
this.
we're going to continue.
Okay,
now.
okay.
Thank you. Did you have anything else to add?
No.
No? Okay, thank you. Did you have any questions of the assessor on the information he's just provided?
No, he's been very helpful with me in
Okay.
the conversation over, and made me aware of the hearing today. I don't recall receiving notification, so I'm sorry for being ill
Okay.
prepared.
It's fine, thank you. Mr. Whitford, did you have any questions of the
Yeah.
assessor?
When we look at the value you've assigned, it's significantly higher than your comparables. And I heard you say it was very tough to find a comparable similar to this. Would you be placing that value based on the square footage of the lot and the adjacent to the river? Are those the two main drivers to the value here?
Yes, they are. They are definitely, and that's what it is. When you look at price per square foot, the price per square foot in many cases, the subject property being larger, there's always an economy of scale that will be taken into consideration, right? So the larger the property, the less per square foot, as we can see there. I don't like to emphasize that too very much, and so, but I do explain it from time to time, right? Because I'm not doing detailed analysis on it and making monetary adjustments. But that's what it is. And the reality is that when you take out the value of the lot, then you start looking at the values quite differently. So let's say, for example, you take minimum $100,000. You see a lot, 12,000 square feet lot, probably closer to, let me put it this way. I was here not too long ago when I saw property in Caledonian River in the east. I don't know if you guys were in the panel then, and a lady showed a value of $275,000, maybe a 6,000 square feet lot, for $200-something thousand. Would I be unreasonable to suggest that the lot here would be $300,000? I don't know, but certainly not less than $250,000 as an example. So now let's look at it this way. If you have a $250,000 lot versus the other ones that are probably $100,000, then you're looking at a big difference right here, right? I'm not going to say how much it is because I know you're going to make your own decision, your own judgment. But yes, it is the lot size that, or the fact that it's on the river, that I can go down to the lower values that you see here.
Thank you. No further questions?
Yes, I'm wondering what is the commercial adjacent that is next to this property? It says it is commercial adjacent.
Let's look at the map and see where I can see that's a subject property. Cornish here, that's going down this way. Ethelbert Corona, so it's by Corona Avenue. And this will be Palmerston, I guess.
I don't know of anything commercial.
I drive through there from time to time. Why do I think it's got to do with, I'm not sure I remember what it is that you have there as a little building or something close by to your, behind you. Well, actually behind you will be the river. But where you have this space here, what I'm pointing out here, is probably what this is, except I don't know what building they are. I don't know if they've got buildings with, because I'm not seeing it. I don't know what those buildings are, but it's still a little bit far removed, it looks like. Commercial adjacent, medium traffic, yeah. Can't tell you.
Okay.
The other thing in defense of Mr. Fines here, I'm just noticing how narrow the lot is. So it would be interesting to know what's the width of your lot.
The width, it's,
I should have that information.
yeah, I've got that.
Okay.
I believe it's 60.
50 foot?
60.
60 maybe?
It's 60, yeah.
I see, okay.
Can you tell me on what basis you would reduce this to $580,000 for 2020?
Well, I didn't reduce it to $580,000 by reducing it, But I really made the time adjustment on the overall market region adjustment from the 560. I'll be forced to admit that because the property has not been sold, that 560 is not necessarily market value. There's no definition of market value. It is based on the assessment.
So when you say market region adjustment, does that mean the percentage?
Yeah,
that
3.55.
3.55. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. So you didn't inspect the property?
No, I didn't.
And you don't have the MLS listings for comps 1 through 4?
On the
sorry, on comps 1 through
no,
4?
No, I don't have it.
Okay. And do you know how many units are in the subject property?
Gee, I didn't take that information out yet.
Okay. And I didn't quite, if you've already answered this, I didn't hear it with Ms. Rempel, but what was the increase?
3.55
Oh, it is, okay.
market region.
All right, thank you. Sir, if you'd like to give us your presentation?
Okay, yeah. I would just like to point out that when you've mentioned, Madam Chairperson, that the property that I am bringing to the attention that is comparable in all aspects, basically, was sold slightly after the period, the assessment period. However, they're very, very similar in attributes. Both were built in the same era, in the early 1900s or 1910 era. They're both located adjacent to the Assiniboine River. The comparable property has slightly more living square footage, while my property has slightly more land area. Both properties have an antiquated heating systems. I viewed the property at the time it was listed, and it is in need of repair. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We both have the original boiler. Both properties, to some extent, have knob and tube electrical. In my case, some areas have been updated. Although I still have a significant amount of knob and tube. And in my case, there's to a large extent, the windows are, again, antiquated and in need of repair. And I think that these factors, when you consider an investor or a purchaser would look at these deficient items and adjust their price accordingly. Now, having said that, and this reference property that's sold in April of 2018, it was sold according to the property registry at $525,000. And again, I was shocked to see it, and I wouldn't accept that. I'll say that right up front. I would not accept that as an offer on my property. I would really be struggling to, for sure. And I would argue, I would be looking for at least the $560,000 as the sale price, and nothing less than, in my view. In addition, I think another impediment to my property is the fact that it has heritage status, which again I think investors would frown upon because of the need to maintain and the rules involved when any modifications would be made to the property. They'd have to follow the protocol. And again, the size of the lot to an investor, that's just idle land and not something there's a return on. And I know that there are a lot of single-family dwellings in the area where, yes, they would be to the individual interested living on the river. That would be very much more attractive than a property that has, in my case, 4 suites, including a basement, a bachelor, my main floor, where I reside, second level, and then it's 2.5 story in the third with homing walls and the ceilings that come in, there's a one-bedroom on that. Totally monthly rent income that with an imputed value for my suite of $1,300 amounts to $4,255, and approximate expenses, including mortgage, currently would factor out to roughly $3,400, and then provision for future repairs, etc., would account for the difference. But having said that, I don't have much more to say.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any questions? No? Mr. Whitbread?
Just a couple. What are the limitations on the heritage status?
Well, I haven't looked into that. I just know that I've been advised by my realtor that, you know, when you have a property that is heritage status, you do have to, there's protocol and I guess agreement to make any sort of modifications.
Do you have the documentation?
No, I
that
don't.
designates it? Not here, but do you have the documentation?
It's listed on the historical site, yes.
Okay.
There's the 4 properties in a row that are listed there, 826, 830, 834 is mine, and 838. They were built all in roughly the same time frame by, I guess, architects and builders were
Okay.
renowned.
Are you familiar with the commercial impact that we were talking about earlier? We were questioning the assessor, and he didn't have an answer. Is there a commercial impact on this property?
Well, there's several in the neighborhood, several.
No, on this property, sir.
No commercial.
No commercial impact?
No commercial.
Okay, you might want to note that, sir. Do you have an estimate on cost to update this property to what would be
To update,
from
say,
1922 to something beyond that?
The boiler and knob and tube, you know, it's got the lath and plaster. Boiler I did look into several years ago, and the quote for an efficient boiler with all involved was roughly $30,000. Knob and tube, I've looked into that as well, and approximately $15,000 for the knob and tube. There's galvanized piping still for water lines in many areas, and I haven't looked at that cost. I don't, you know, just because of not wanting to.
Have you done the windows, the roof?
There's windows, no. Predominantly there's the aluminum sliders, and I do have some tri-beam, about maybe 20%.
Okay. What's the value you think we should be putting on this home, sir?
Close to his, I'd say I wanted about 570. Historically, this house was purchased in 2008. It was, the acquisition date was the April 1st, 2008, which happened to fall on an assessment date. That assessment, I think it was for the 2010 year, reflected $480,000.
And the home was purchased for $400,000.
$400,000 on the peak, right. And so at that time, I did contest it, indicating that, you know, okay, this was the arm's length transaction bought from an elderly individual. $400,000 was agreed to price, and it was negotiated for that. I believe because of acquisition date and the value date being equal. I know that subsequent to that, the next assessment rose tremendously by a large percent. And again, I objected to it, and it was a settlement as well. The most recent, last year's or 2016's assessment, someone came out and did take a look at the property, and it was adjusted downward slightly to the 560 value.
My note says 2018 was 560 or 2016? I didn't see any evidence.
2060, like the prior assessment.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. No further questions.
Thank you. I'm wondering, do you live here?
In Winnipeg, in the...
In this house?
Yes, I do. I
Okay.
occupied the first, occupied the main level.
The main floor? So when you indicate in your evidence that you received month of $42.55,
Yes.
does that include your,
That's including imputed what I feel I could rent
Pardon me.
that suite for if I was not there. So it's included in the $42.55, correct?
okay. What is in your basement?
It
It indicates that you have a full basement and it's finished, maybe
Well,
partially?
partially. There's a large boiler room and then a workplace that's just with apparently asbestos in the boiler room. I guess I didn't mention that, but that's another issue. But there is a bachelor suite down there that occupies about 40%, or 35 to 40% of the basement, which is rented. And there's a laundry. There's laundry
30 to
facilities.
45% of the basement is rented?
Is as a bachelor suite,
Okay.
correct?
Now, for the comparison that you have brought in for our consideration, you said that originally it went on the market in January 2017.
I think it was more later, it's 2017. I think it was November, December of 2017, and by January I checked into it and they said it was conditionally sold at that time, and that remained outstanding for several months, the conditional sale, which was surprising because initial talk with the realtor said it was conditionally sold and a response was required within 2 weeks or something. It's my recollection of it.
Was there ever an MLS listing?
I believe it was. There was a for sale sign. I think it was by Remax, in fact, on the property.
It looks like it was a probate sale
I believe that the individual...
from the information that you have submitted?
Yeah, well, I believe the individual that resided there passed away, and it was, I believe it had 4 suites in it. I believe that's stated in here within the documents that I provided from Property Registry, and it had the individual deceased that lived there, resided there, and 3 other units.
You wouldn't happen to have an MLS listing?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. So you've never been in 1206 Wolseley?
I went by and looked at it. I have, yes. I looked at it briefly, just to get an appetite of what, because I know in other cases there's never been comparable properties when an assessment issue came up.
Right. So, was this an open house then and you were in it?
No, I just went by there, checked it out.
So just an exterior
Yes.
inspection? Okay, thank
Yes.
you. So how, do you know square footage, how big your basement is, the rental area?
Oh, it's a bachelor, so it would be 600 feet,
Okay. And how much do you get for the basement?
$630.
Okay. And the second story?
Second story, what do I receive rent-wise?
Yes, and square footage?
The square footage would be roughly 1,400, and I receive $1,500 a month rent.
Okay. And the top floor?
Square footage wise, because it's got the pony walls, I'm going to estimate 750 McGraths, and I receive $825 in rent for that unit.
Okay. So you've mentioned your boiler needs replacing?
It's 110 years old. I know it's inefficient.
Yeah.
I've had the individual in and then
Right. And you've got the asbestos issue with it?
There's asbestos issue, yes.
And you've got the knob and tube. And, sorry, you don't have any fireplaces?
You know what, it was pirated out of there at some point in time. I know that there's not a working fireplace. There must have been a grand old, at the time when it was built, fireplace put in there that got replaced with just some plastic cheap thing, and I imagine someone liked it so much they took it with them at some point in time, because it was removed before
Before you
I
purchased.
purchased the place,
Okay.
yes.
What a shame.
Yes.
And so you were looking at 470 for a request, or
570?
570.
Yeah, not 470.
we'd love 470.
Yeah, okay, sold.
Okay.
And
Summary
again, like, I
questions.
haven't raised the rent since, in several years, and it's been, I think I'm there 3 more years as soon as my youngest is gone.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Leave it with us.
Yes, thank you for your time.
And we're just going to take a 5-minute break. And I'd like to call this hearing back to order, and we are going to hear 866 Palmerston Avenue.
Would you like to swear in or affirm? All right, please state your full name.
Here, sir.
And you affirm the evidence that represents the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Do you have any evidence for the panel?
I do have a report, so I tried to see if I could find yours for you.
Is it fun to share it?
That's fine. I have 2 copies, and I can look on the screen for you. So.
Okay. You have 2 copies. Can I have one more?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You can keep it, and then you guys will have to share it, and then I'll do it. I think the application can be like that, but I'll look.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. Mr. Armstrong, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Madam Chair. If you don't mind, give me a moment here. Okay, I have to report this a little later, Madam Chair. All right, in reference to the subject property, which is on 866 Palmerston, row number 120-827-16000, and this property is a 2-unit from the information we have here, multi-family, 2,520 square feet. As you can see, effectively a change in the property on a 5,585 square feet of Assiniboine River lot. $662,000 for the property, that's the assessed value is what we have, and $460,000 is the last sale in 2010. Now the 4 compounds that we have here, the 4 compounds that I have here is, let's see, none of them is on the Assiniboine River. Each of the property is in Wolseley, same as the subject property, except that the comparables are not on the river, as an emphasis. 2.5 story is each of the comparables multi-conversion, and there are effectively changes in each of these comparables as well. As you can see, the size of the home, they vary as well, but they are still closer to that of the subject property in comparable number 2 and 3, and number 1 is virtually the same size. Comparable number 3 and 4 is slightly smaller, as you can see, and the lot size are smaller. But more importantly, a location is going to be an adjustment, because the location of the subject property is indeed superior to that of the comparables. Now, what am I seeing here then for the time adjusted sale price? The lowest one is $417,000, which is comparable number 4. And then the highest one is $476,000, which is comparable number 1. And I look across, I think I see they're asking here $540,000 is an appraised value in 2019. So I'm looking now at 500 and they're asking $590,000 or $20,000, something like that. When I look at the very highest comparable that I have in comparable number 1, that would be less than $50,000 difference, I think, from what they're asking, and not on the river and so on this property. I think maybe at some point in time I'll question that appraisal report by just looking at certain things, but I'll get to that later. I know that the $662,000, the reason I did not make any adjustment or any kind of recommendation, Madam Chair, is primarily because of 2 reasons. One more important than the other one. Less important was the assessment that was going on over the years. The last one was $618,000 in 2018 and 19. Previous to that, it was $583,000 in 16 and 17. So we leave that to those 2 for the time being. But equally important, or perhaps even more significant, is that there's $115,000 permit that was taken out on this property last August, or is it July? That depending on when the month falls here. 8/6/2019 is probably going to suggest maybe in July. So when we see $115,000 being put on this property for whatever reasons they are, I couldn't make any adjustment for recommendation. And Madam Chair, that would be my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, do you have any questions for the assessor who's just presented?
Only one. Is there an average of an added value for a river property versus a property not on the river?
They vary, and I'm glad you asked that question, because from time to time we do have to look at those very carefully. They vary in different areas. I've seen properties for $300,000 on the river. I've seen $275,000 in a property that was worth nothing. The house was worth nothing. And usually when we look at the value, and that's what you're asking to your point, about the value of the land, then that would be after we demolish the house. So that's how we get it, right? Unless one was there. Most of the properties that are in developed area on the river, they're either not sold, or if they're sold for land value being taken off, then we know the value. So I've seen over $300,000. It all depends on the size. Now yours is a 50-foot lot, I think, or rather how many square feet? I'll get that in a moment again. Oh. What do I have my here? Yours is 55 by 85, so I suspect yours would be about 50 by 100 or very close, right? If you ask me what I think the value of your lot is going to be, I would say that the market is going to pay no less than about $250,000, and probably even or even greater than that. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I'm not looking at any statistics. I'm basing on my some memories and different things
Sure.
that I've seen, right? I don't know that I have any reason to think otherwise, and I don't know that it will be any less than that. In fact, I rather think that I've given a very a low value, or certainly the low end
Okay.
of the value.
And one other question, do you know what the average property value increase in the Wolseley area has
In
been?
your area?
Yeah.
The whole area there would be, and I think that would also include, by the way, the north of Portage Avenue, 3.55%.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread.
Thank you. Did you make reference to a permit, a building permit?
Yes, there is a building permit. You can really see whether or not. Let me just make sure I got the name right here. I see a Jenny's. Okay. All right. Jenny Simi, is that?
Jenny Side, yeah, that's my wife.
Okay, all right, good. So I see there is a building permit for 115,000.
115?
But I can say, in all defense perhaps to the appellant here, this is not to enhance the property a great deal. It looks like, let me read it out to you so
I
that...
was just going to say, will you tell us what it's for?
All right. Structural alteration to the existing single-family dwelling, remove existing load-bearing wall, install new posts and steel beams in the main floor, new footing and telepost in the lower level, replace windows and doors in the same size, plumbing and electrical work to be done. So I think what is significant for enhancing or beautifying the building would be the electrical and the plumbing, the windows and doors, and electrical. I suspect that might probably be Navanchu, I'm guessing. I don't know, but I'm guessing. So that would enhance the building somewhat.
Thank you. Thank you, that's all. No other questions.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, did you make mention of what the 2018 assessment was?
$618,000.
Thank you, that's all my questions.
May I, oh, sorry, Madam
Oh,
Chair,
yeah.
when you're done, I'll have a
No,
question.
go ahead.
Oh. Was that 618,000 appealed?
No, from what I have here for information, this is the first time this property is being appealed.
Okay.
It was never appealed before.
And you said 2016,
Again?
I believe, was 583.
And yeah, previously, again, to further to address that question, those figures I'm giving you, they're not market value, they're assessed value.
No,
So
no, I understand that. Yep, thank you. That's fine.
Mr. Ramswack, you did not inspect this property,
I did
correct?
not insure.
And you don't have MLS listings for your comps
Not
1 through 4?
2010, no, I'm sure.
And your comps 1 through 4, nothing is on the river,
Correct.
correct? Did you do a drive-by?
No, I didn't.
What was the date of the permit again? Sorry, last year in August?
The permit?
The permit, yes.
8/6/2016. I suspect that the month comes before the date. Month comes before the date. So it'll be
So-
August, perhaps.
No, it was June.
Or is it in June?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you say 2016?
28/19.
19, yes.
2019. So it was in August, did you say?
No, in June.
In June, okay.
Yeah,
So June comes after, all right.
Okay, thank you. Sir, if you'd like to give us your brief?
Oh, sure. I'll just address a couple of things that were brought up as well. So, actually, first, I should note, and I don't know from previous presentations if this has a big impact. It's listed as a multifamily conversion. It had, I believe, in the past, in the 90s, been used as a, upper and lower suite. My understanding is since about 2000, it's been single family. We've lived there since 2010, and it's been single family, but it may still be listed or registered with the city. So again, I don't know if that's relevant or not. And then the previous assessed values were noted, and there was I think it was the previous time the assessment notice came out, I did intend to appeal, but I missed the date. So the reason I did decide to appeal is mainly looking at the purchase price of $460 and now the assessed value of $662 about 10 years later. It seemed to be a higher increase than I think the market has increased. And it seems to be reflected in the assessor's report. Now, from previous presentations too, I'm not sure these comparables are post-reference date, is that the term? They're all after April, so I don't know if they can be used. They are tough to find comparables of river properties in similar sizes. I'll just speak briefly to the comparable number 1 in the report, just for the sake of talking about it. Since it's 2 or 3 doors down from us and it sold for $510, similar square footage at, well, lot size is the same, and the livable square feet is 300 square feet smaller than our property. So there's a few things like that that led me to think that perhaps the city assessment value had gone up faster than the market had actually gone up. In regards to the building permit, so there's the work that was mentioned on the report. I will say as well that there was, as part of that work, kitchen cabinets that were replaced, so that would add value, just to be upfront about that. Yeah, so that's all I want to say about the renovation. Oh, and then in regards to the assessor's report I provided with you, again, if those dates are post-reference, I have an assessment from 2 or 3 years earlier, which I didn't bring. I thought it was too old, which was at $525, and I could provide that if that's relevant or not. So again, all these things are sort of causing me to question the assessment. And I guess my concern is, like, I understand the building permit probably muddies the water a little bit because that is some work done. My concern on it, though, is that if that building permit is looked at and the value of that work is added on top of the current assessment of $660, I think we then go quite a bit higher. So I think the assessor's report that I gave you at $540 is low given the work that was done over the summer. I don't know if it would bring it to $660, but again, my concern would be if we use $660 as a base and with the permit on record, that is then used in 2 years to increase the value again. So, and then I guess the last thing I looked at, and I did this during the other presentations when I learned about the post-reference dates. I just looked through the sales book. So there are a few other Palmerston River properties that were in the sales book that would be, I guess, in the reference period. There's only 2.5 story ones, so they're both around 2,000 square feet. And unfortunately, I think they vary a lot based on conditions. So, and sorry, one was on Palmerston, which sold for $425 in 2016, and then one was on Wolseley. Also sold in 2017 at $707, so a very wide range. I drove by the one on Wolseley, and I do remember seeing fairly extensive renovations going on there, but I haven't seen the inside, so I don't know how it compares to our property. The only other comment I would make is the third comparable, going back to the report I provided you with, which is also at 660 in a different neighborhood on Scotia Street. For what it's worth, the assessor noted that the MLS listing had stated that there had been about $500,000 in renovations done prior to the sale. It has a finished basement, which ours, I guess ours is listed as partially finished. It's very roughly partially finished. And that other property also has a garage, which ours doesn't. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Ramsey?
I can't help but having to update premise of Madam Chair. I know that the appraiser is not here. And you probably say, no, I can't ask because that's what it is. But here's always my problem in this case. One thing I saw that's significant is that based on all the appraisal reports, Madam Chair, that I've seen, and it's sort of a question to keep that in mind. When we look at industry standard at $80 per square foot average for difference in size of the home, the building, I'm seeing $150 in this case. So the question is, again, you're not the appraiser, so that's it. You wouldn't have the answer to this question. That should basically be something in my summation where I make that point. Because he can't answer this question, at least I don't think he can. So I'm going to make that. I'm going to emphasize that in my summation, right? So no, I don't think I'm going to ask any questions.
Mr. Whitford?
I just had a brief look at the evidence you provided, and I saw Ms. Sonley's evaluation January 2019 at $540,000.
Right.
That was her appraisal. And then I saw another one a little bit deeper in the report for $606,000. Do you recall that?
The cost approach.
Using the cost approach. Was there a thought to refinancing, a tear down refinance?
Do you need to take a look at it again?
Yeah, do you have the page on that?
Madam Chair, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that so there wasn't any thought of tear down, or I think that was your question. Mm-hmm. I know I read somewhere in here, and I'm not an assessor, so I know that somewhere in here they say they use a few different methods to come up with the valuation, so that might be the reason. So
just an alternative you're thinking?
I guess, yeah, that
okay.
Compared to market value comparables. So
let me jump to another area then. The permit and the work. The permit was taken out in June of this year.
Yeah.
Is the work complete?
Yeah. There's a little bit of exterior work, like some restucco around the new window that needs to happen next spring.
But you mentioned that the kitchen cabinets were replaced.
Yeah.
Does that include countertops, flooring?
Yeah. So countertops, cabinets, and then they were wood floors, so those needed to be refinished.
Mm-hmm. And what about bathrooms?
No, bathrooms
were not touched?
No.
Okay. That's all my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you purchased the home in 2010.
Right.
And you mentioned that it had been a multifamily dwelling prior to that. Were you aware that it was a multifamily dwelling prior to that? Is maybe the way I should ask that.
I wasn't aware at the time. So we've actually lived in the neighborhood since '97. We just lived down the street at 891, and we knew the people who lived there late '90s, early 2000s, and talking to them, they had done fairly extensive renovations to the first floor to sort of take it from a first floor suite to a regular, single family type suite.
So it, in fact, has not been a multifamily dwelling for a very long
period
for a
of
long
time,
as far as you know.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Because I was just wondering if you had to do any renovations when you moved into the home to change it from a multifamily.
Right. Yeah, no, that had already been done.
That had already been done. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
I just wanted to page, 13 of your brief. The top picture here is your kitchen.
Right.
Okay. So you've extensively done new cabinetry. Did you say new cabinetry or cabinetry bases?
New cabinetry.
And then a new countertop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same size, but it's new cabinets and countertop.
Okay. And then this is your main bathroom on the bottom, and that's original?
Yes.
Yeah. Tub, the floor?
Yeah, original.
Yeah.
Tub and floor. So.
And then this is your, is this your boiler here?
Yes.
Okay, so that's been updated?
Yeah, it's not original.
No. Oh, okay. But you've had, sorry, did you have that done with your permit then?
So that's in the assessment report.
Right.
And then part of
Photo looks like it's dated January 22nd of 2019.
yeah, so that was pre-reno.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so the reno did include a boiler as well.
Okay, so you've replaced that boiler?
Yeah, that was part
Okay.
of the 115.
Okay. And you did some windows or all of the windows?
We did the kitchen window and the dining room window and the back door.
Okay.
So maybe 25% at most of the house.
And sorry, what number are you looking for?
So would we be talking pre-reno or post-reno?
As it stands now?
Oh, as it stands now? Okay. I would go off the assessor's report and say,
Do you mean your appraisal report?
oh yeah, so off the appraiser's report. So if we do this, so here's the question I guess I'm looking at is, not wanting to see the current assessed value be used as a base and then have the $100,000 permit sort of added on top of that to bring it to say 760 in 2 years when the reassessment happens. If that makes sense.
Does, that's up to the assessment.
Right, okay. I don't know what they use and how they determine those things. So I know this would probably be cleaner if we were talking pre-reno. Post-reno, I'd say it would be over 6, probably. I would hope it would be. I would use the 540 as a base and say, the reno might have added, 60 to 80. And it's
So 620?
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if we were talking, if we were talking before the reno was done, I would just use the assessor's report.
Appraisal.
I'm sorry, appraisal report. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for
very
your
much.
time and your patience.
Probably.
We are looking at 404 Gertrude.
Please state your full name.
Susan Spanik.
And you swear the evidence about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. I can take it.
This is it. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
She's the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the subject property on 404 Gertrude Avenue with a roll number, the roll number 120-212-63000. The property description here with two-story multi-family dwelling. Change effective age, 1,520 square feet. And because it's a part basement, here a part full area, I'll give you those figures. The additional area is 120 square feet. The basement area is 700 square feet. So that when you add the 700 square feet and plus, and because a two-story home, 7 and 714, and 120 would be 1520. That's how you get 1,520 square feet. A little development in the basement would be 240 square feet. And the subject property assessed at $295,000. We have a post-reference sale on that property. And it's good to know too that in 2008 it's $255,000 what it sold for, and they sold afterwards for a different value. We don't typically discuss or talk about what it is sold for when it's post-reference. However, because the property has been assessed for all these years, and more especially 18 and 19, I made a recommendation which is not acceptable for $276,000. Now, let's look then at the comparables. When we see the properties that are in a close by area and that in River Osborne as well, two-story multi-family conversion has various effective age, and the size of the homes varies slightly from one to the next. The lot size are highly similar to those of the subject property, and we see values of the lowest one, of course, is $227,000 as I see here, to $289,000 for the highest one. So why did I put that? I guess this might be a surprise to the parent, because I did speak with her when we discussed certain values. I didn't speak with her afterwards, and she probably does think that we're going to still use the same ones that were in the auto comps that were highly similar to that of the subject property. By saying highly similar, I'm referring to the fact that they were based on the characteristics and based on the effective age and that sort of thing. So when you look at the property, for example, we're having a 1940, the subject property, having 1940's effective age, that was a change by 25 years. This is one of the reasons why now we're looking at $295,000. So when we talk about selecting properties that are close to the subject property, effective age is always going to be important along with the location and the size of the home. So when I look at what was happening here, indeed you have lower properties, but the question is, this property all of a sudden dropped after 10 years, dropped from $255,000 to $237 or $38 as the parent would want. Madam Chair, I beg to disagree. And so the $276,000 or thereabout, I think, is fair assessment, and I ask that you confirm that value. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any questions of the assessor?
I do. Firstly, do you know what the condition of the property was in 2008 versus the condition today?
I did look at the multiple listing, and because I'm not seeing them as we speak, I did look at the properties, including the comparables of all that you have here. So I thought that maybe 295 was high, and as you know, I recommended 276, but we are here.
I'm not sure that answered my question.
I said I inspected MLS listing. I look at the pictures of MLS, your property, when it was sold, and the comparables in this case.
Did you look at the MLS listing pictures from 2008?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you note any differences?
You're asking me something, you asked me to remember many properties I've seen, and I don't know that I may be able to remember. At that point, I made a judgment based on what I saw, and I'm going to stick with my judgment there.
All right. Looking at your comparables, would you indicate which comparable you think is the closest to the subject property?
Well, they're highly similar to most of these properties. I did throw in the very lowest one actually when I saw the very low properties in the area, and these were the two properties that you see here at 249 and 237. I thought that they were low. I thought they were actually, the value there would be, I think, inferior to your property.
So you're saying 733 would be closer, and like comp 1 and comp 3 would be closer? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the two properties that are lower in value are inferior to yours. That's my opinion. They're inferior to yours, and that's why I suggested it to 76 is more closely have a value that is I should say the value represents the house, and the value is fair at 276 is what I thought.
Looking at comparable number 4, it indicates it has a full basement. Is that full basement included in the living area of 1,518?
1,518, that is a full, it is a full basement as what you see here, and so you can simply divide that 1580 by 2, and you probably get about 700 square feet or 7 something. If by chance, and you have it's a good question, and I can tell you what can happen from time to time. If, like yours is 1,200 and rather 1,520, and I'm looking at this one at 1,518, which is the same size, if for any reason that you think that perhaps, well, maybe we have it wrong, it's because the full basement there could be full apart, I don't know. But I'm relying on this information to be correct.
Sorry, full?
It's full basement.
Oh, full or part. Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. Okay, but I just so that I understand, because you had indicated that the 1,520 on the subject property was on the basis of 700 square feet on the main floor, 700 square feet on the second floor, and 120 in the lower level.
120 is the additional area. We have an additional area that we have a basement under that.
Sorry, so what's the additional area? I'm just trying to understand.
We have on record there is an additional area that it's a living area, and if it's heated, then we'll have that at 50. We'll have that as the additional area.
Where is that additional area located in the subject property?
Let me look to see if I have the listing here. I don't think I took it, but I'm going to copy it or anything. I'm going to see. Okay. That's 2018. I'm running out to read it 2018. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not discussing the price, but I'm going to read the listing on the 2018 because we still like to find out what the property is, right? Present condition. Great revenue property steps.
Excuse me, she's just asking a question that she would like answered. Okay, so can you just answer that question?
I'm looking for the answer, whether or not it's got a full basement or part basement. She wants to know if the additional area she wants to know where I got the additional area of 120 square feet.
Right, so can you
If
not
the
look
listing
at
we have
that? I don't need to hear the whole listing. I would like to have that entered into evidence, though.
You can have it.
Okay, thank
Right?
you.
If I do it to you, I won't get to read it, but you'll have to let me have it first, right? Thank you. All right. Grade 1,520 square feet revenue property, Forston. Right? That's what the listing states. We also have that. Just steps away from Osborne, the main floor suite has 1 bedroom, living room, dining room, eating area, hardwood floor, and I think what is important, but I'm sure what you're asking for, is the listing and the 1,500 square feet. So with that said, I'm going to let you have the listing and you can keep that to your record. Oh, and the picture.
All right. On your comparable number 2, you've indicated that it has an effective age of 1917, and you've indicated the subject property has an effective age of 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you looked at the MLS listing for this property. Was this property renovated?
I don't remember the details of the comparables.
So if I suggest to you that it was fully renovated with new bathrooms, new kitchens, you wouldn't dispute that?
Well, you are on the road. I mean, if you say that, I'm sure that the appellant will believe you.
And you made reference to a conversation that we had and some other comparables that you had since turned aside?
Yes.
All right. And you would agree that one of those comparables was a property at 643 Dudley Avenue?
Yes.
All right. And it sold in August of 2016 at $295,000.
I agree.
All right. And the listing for that property indicates that you would agree that it had over $60,000 in upgrades?
I don't know that much.
Okay, this can be part of your presentation, because this is just information, question on what he's presented.
Okay, it was just because you had referenced other properties, that's
Okay.
why. All right. And then going to, now, would you differentiate in value between properties located east of Osborne versus west of Osborne?
It's not all. We don't always have to look and make a difference in the location when we look at the entire building and land and building to determine the overall value. So to look at the value on the different locations, say they're all going to be higher or lower, no, we don't do that. Having said that, Madam Chair, if I may, because I need to answer one of our questions more completely. 643 Dudley, and that's the reason we had this conversation. 643 Dudley was also sold for $257,200 in March of 2015, and this is why I brought those. In fact, I took that property out. I'm not using the 643 Dudley that was sold in 2016 any longer.
Going to comparable number 1, was that an MLS sale?
I beg your pardon?
Was comparable number 1 an MLS sale?
If it is MLS sale, good question again. I did not write it down as an MLS sale. Sometimes I do. Let me just see, I got some other information here. I didn't write on any of these properties, although I would have looked at as many MLS properties as possible. Because I did not write it that is MLS, I can't say for sure.
Okay.
Because I know that some of these properties have been, when I did some other research, some of these properties have been private sale.
So, are you aware whether it was a arm's length or non-arm's length transaction?
I have a question.
Are you aware whether it was an arm's length or non-arm's length transaction?
Well, typically, when I look at properties and they are not with the same owner, typically, with family or associate sale and things like that, they are going to be deemed to be arm's length sale.
All right. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing, thanks.
Yes, I'm just wondering, you say that this was a post-reference sale. When was it sold?
It was sold, I think maybe, I wonder if I wrote that in that piece of paper they request for, I think. Oh, I got it here. It was sold in September of last year.
September of 18?
Right.
Okay. It says it's commercial adjacent. Can you tell me what it is adjacent to?
I don't think I can, but I can look at the map and try to make some kind of, you can look at it and see what is going on. Subject. Okay, there's a subject. And this is Scott, and that's probably Pemina Highway is close by, okay? So Pemina Highway is close by, and as you can see from your map, and you see some properties there that are where the lot size would indicate they're much larger. I suspect that there would be some kind of a commercial business that's going on there, whether it be neighborhood, whatever, shopping perhaps.
Do you
The
have,
office buildings, but they are.
but you don't know for
I
sure
don't know
what
what
it
they
is.
are.
Are there any building permits on this property?
If I just look at the notes here, permit no.
No. Okay, thank you, that's all my questions.
Do you have the MLS listings on the comparables, 1 through 4?
No.
No. Okay. How many units are in the subject property?
Let's see if I wrote that down. 2.
Thank you, that's all my questions. If you'd like to give us your brief.
All right. So the subject property is a 2-story house, and it does have 2 units. The main floor unit is 700 square feet and consists of a 1-bedroom, a living room, a large dining room, and eat-in kitchen and a bathroom. The second floor is, again, 700 square feet, 2 bedrooms, plus then living room, kitchen, and bathroom. There's a small laundry area in the basement with a non-functioning half bathroom, and that is the part finished component, just the laundry area and that half bathroom. The rest of the basement is unfinished. The property is located on Gertrude between Osborne and Scott, just north of Confusion Corner. It is located beside the former Northern Paints factory building. And on the other side of it is a converted house that is, I'll say, retail use. It has a massage therapy business. Across the back lane are further commercial manufacturing warehouse type buildings. So it really is the only residential property on that block. Across the street, there is a 2-building apartment complex, 3-story walk-up, fairly large, but I don't know how many units those contain. So it is very much in a commercial area as opposed to a housing area. And yes, the house did sell post-reference date, but it was purchased by the owner of the building that owns the buildings next door. So the numbered company owns the former Northern Paints as well as some of the buildings across the back lane. All right. I'm going to take you through my comparables, and what I'll just explain a little bit of background on this. In order to find comparables, I enlisted the aid of a real estate agent who had access to the MLS listings and tried to find properties that were in the area that were in approximately the same vintage and approximately the same size. So I had used more of a 10% variation in size from the subject property, which is 1,520 square feet. I only found one property that was a 2-suite, like a 2-story suite conversion that fit those parameters, and that happens to be the same one that is comparable for on the assessor's presentation. And so I'm going to, if you go to pages 3 and 4 of my submission, are photos of the subject property. particularly on the top of page 3, you'll see the lovely olive green bathroom. You can also see on the top of the second row of photos on the top of page 4. You can see some of the conditions of the hardwood floors in the property. Generally speaking, the pictures on page 3 are the first floor, and the pictures on page 4 are the second floor, and some shots of the backyard. I will let you know that these are the pictures from the MLS listing when it was sold in 2018, post-reference date. However, I did walk through the property last week, and it is in substantially the same condition. There's not been any real work done. So I didn't want to disrupt the tenants by taking newer pictures when they wouldn't really show any different. And then in comparison, on page 5 and 6, you will find the pictures of the one property, the Mulvey Avenue property, that is a suite conversion. And I would suggest that those pictures show a property that is probably in some ways, better shape than the subject property, particularly when it comes to flooring and such. There's an argument to be made whether or not hardwoods are preferable over carpets, and a personal preference there. The kitchens are probably of similar vintage. The Mulvey property has 3 kitchens, as opposed to the subject property having 2. The Mulvey property also has 3 bathrooms, I believe. Let me just go back and double check that. Oh no, sorry, 2 full bathrooms. Again, both properties have a laundry area. So from that perspective, I would suggest that, given the other difference between the 2 properties is that the subject property has a single detached garage, whereas the Mulvey property just has a parking pad. I would suggest that based on the superior location of the Mulvey property versus it not having a garage, and that the 2 properties are very comparable. Because I couldn't find another property that was within 10% of the size of the subject property, I did include 2 single-family homes as comparables, just because that was the closest that I could get. And you will note that those 2 sold for slightly more than the one that I indicate's most comparable, the Mulvey Avenue one. That's comp 4 on the Assessors Report. But they're there. Unfortunately, the picture on page 7, all that was available was the front of the house. But you'll see that for the last comparable that I've shown, the house is in probably, I would consider, superior condition. So what I essentially did to arrive at my value of $238,000 was to look at that one that was quite comparable, factored in the fact that it had sold in November 2016, and adjusted it for date purposes to the $238,000, which the assessor essentially was $237,300. So it was in the realm of what the assessor had adjusted for date of sale for that as well. I will touch briefly on the property that I alluded to earlier, that's at 643 Mulvey. And that one also did sell in 2016. It has a square footage of 1,274 square feet. So I didn't use it as a comparable because it is quite a bit smaller. But I had discounted that one as well because of the extensive nature of the renovations, which included new drywall, new paint, new laminate tile floorings, new trim, new PVC windows, new higher efficiency furnace, new closet organizers, stunning granite countertops, tile backsplash, newer lighting, ultralight and USB plugs and some outlets, all new bath with marble, and it goes on. Subject to your questions, Madam Chair, that's the presentation.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, just for my information here, I don't know if I missed anything. The property you were describing a moment ago, that very last one, can you give me the address again?
643 Dudley.
643 what?
Dudley.
Dudley.
643 Dudley. Okay, let me just check something here. 643 Dudley, and just wondering, okay. All right. So that's 643 Dudley, you and I talked about this a few days ago, maybe?
Correct. That was one of your original comparables. That was one of the original comparables.
You realize I'm not using that as a comparable?
Today, yes.
You realize that?
Yes.
You realize that I had the power to use the comparable to be 643, but we are sold for, I'll get to that information in a moment, $257,200 before the renovation.
I'm sorry?
You realize that it was sold in 2015 for $257,200 before the renovation.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, so that's fine. That's the one. Oh yeah, and you did also mention that you couldn't find other comparables that are multi-family, and that you choose to use a single-family home. Any special reason for using the single-family rather than the multi-conversion that I did?
I think I said those were all that I could find that were within 10% of the size of the subject property.
Okay, all right. So if I were to say then that 743 was within 10% of the size of the property, would you agree? In my comparable?
It didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't come up, and I don't know, I have to do the math. No, it's 14. It's 14%. It's not within.
Between 1453 and 1520, is that 14%?
Oh, sorry, I looked at the wrong one.
Yeah.
It did not come up when I put in the parameters in my search, so I
then
don't.
is it reasonable then for me to suggest?
Oh, wait, sorry. Can you please repeat that? Sorry, 1580. Sorry, which one are you saying is within?
1,483 square feet. Would you say 1,453 square feet is less than 10% of that of the subject property?
Correct. I'm sorry, the reason it didn't come up in my search is I didn't go back to 2015.
Okay. Is it reasonable then to suggest, this is the last question, reasonable to suggest that the values that you got, or because it suited it, or closer to the $240,000 value? Is that the reason why you got those comparables?
No, the reason I got those comparables because I used a 10% range for size and used sales going back to 2016, 17, up to the reference date.
But so you now know that you can use properties that are, that even if it is more than 10%, you can still use it. You do that sometimes? Anyways, Madam Chair, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitford?
Are you the owner?
I am an employee of the parent company of the owner.
Thank you. You don't live on the property?
I do not live in the property.
I should have asked that. Do you live in the property?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So I look at your I look at the map that the assessor provided, and subject property looks to be one lot, very long, narrow, another lot beside it, and then a bunch of big lots in front, beside, and behind, as you described.
Right.
You're sort of stuck in a industrial area.
Correct.
And the lot just to the left on the photo, as I look at the photo with this orientation,
Yes.
is that the,
That's,
what is that?
That is the massage business.
Thank you. And the one that looks to be on the other side, your photo, page 4, it's kind of a big white building with windows on the second floor.
That is the former paint factory.
And then behind it, I see, looks like a blue building. That would be the industrial, the other industrial area, would it?
Correct. It is a, that, I think it's unfortunate the way the angle is taken. I think it's sort of slightly an angled photo. So that building is, there is a reupholstering factory for, or upholstering factory for cars.
Okay.
That operates out of 2 buildings that are on either side of the subject property.
Okay.
And then there's a warehouse type building that is owned by the same owner as the subject property that's sort of in between. So
the massage parlor building is not owned by you as well?
no,
Okay.
that is a complete third party.
Okay. And the property was purchased in 2018 for $275. Full disclosure of the condition.
Correct.
You were all totally aware of what it looked like at the time?
Yes, but you've got to consider the fact that it probably wasn't bought because of its condition. It was probably...
Why was it bought then?
It was bought because it's adjacent to the commercial property, and we wanted the flexibility to control what happens with that property going forward. There might be a redevelopment of the building that we're having, so in the meantime, it generates income.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Thank you for taking us there. Okay, I have no further questions.
And what is the income it is generating?
I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but in the range of $900 to $1,000 per suite. And that's going off of memory. Unfortunately, I didn't think it was valued by income, so I didn't actually look at that very closely.
And when were these pictures taken that you have supplied as your evidence?
For the subject property, they're from the listing that happened in 2018, so it probably would have been done by the real estate agent in I believe it was listed in August, so probably July, August of 2018.
And has any work been done to the property since that time?
No.
That's all my questions, thank you.
Okay. I don't have any questions, but I'm going to address to you, Mr. Ramswack. What was the 2018 assessment on this property?
$276,000.
Would you repeat, please?
$276,000. And this is the reason why I didn't want to go down any lower, considering the post-record sale.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Just once again, I couldn't go along
Yeah,
side
go
that way.
ahead.
I didn't want to go during while the evidence was being presented.
Cold in here now.
It's cold, isn't it?
It's gone.
It's gone right now, because it's 4 o'clock, or
Maybe.
they close the...
Oh, shut it.
Do you swear or do you affirm?
Sorry.
Please state your full name.
Ryan Oliveros.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. I need to get it.
This is for 762 Broadway. And I just have...
Is that? Oh, second property, which is, okay, this one first? Okay.
No.
Oh,
I'm just giving them both to you.
oh, okay, thank you.
I think I gave somebody to... We can start it up.
Mr. Ramswak, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, we're doing it without...
She'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she gave me the go-ahead, so you can read
Okay,
your
go
brief.
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. 263 Landside is the subject property. Roll number 120-908-78000.
Broadway.
Yeah, we're doing Broadway. We're doing Broadway.
We're doing Broadway.
762 Broadway?
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, we start over. 762 Broadway. Roll number 120-902-82000. Property in Wolseley. It's a 2.5-story multi-conformation building built in 1907 with a effective change. 2,358 square feet is the size of the building. 5,371 square feet is the size of the lot. Of course, we know Broadway is busy, heavy traffic, bus route and probably truck route as well, no doubt. $436,000 is the assessed value on this property. It does have 4 units. The 4 compounds that I have here, they are all 2.5-story multi-conversion building in the Wolseley area. Each of these properties, whenever they were built, had effectively change on them. And as for the living area, they vary slightly as well. The first 2 comparables, there is nothing in the basement. And the second 2 comparables, the size of the basement, finished area that is very small, and I'll get to that later. The subject property, as far as the size of the lot are, they are considerably smaller than that of the subject. So now let's go straight now to the time adjusted sale price. What might seem $476,000 for comparable number 1, $347,000 for comparable number 2, $417,000 for comparable number 3, and $426,000 for comparable number 4. Now this is what I've done as well. Now let's see. Comparable number 3, by the way, has 3 units. Comparable number 2 has 2 units. And compound 3 and 4 also have 2 units each. The subject property, if I didn't mention that before, has 4 units. So when I did the per unit assessment on the property, I'm getting $109,000 for the subject property. For comparable number 1, I'm getting $55,000. A little bit higher, but 155 is okay per unit. Comparable number 2 is $142,900 per unit. Comparable number 3 is $208,800 a unit. And the comparable number 4 is $218,000 per unit. Now, I discussed price per unit earlier in a different property. So we know that when you have more units in a building, as in the subject property, then the price per unit is going to be lower, and no doubt the price per square foot is going to be lower. And so that's why that is there at 109. That said, if we look at price per square foot is 184, and the only one that is actually lower than that is comparable number 2, which is $164 a square foot. By that now I will try to find out why, and I'm seeing that it is a smaller property, but not the smallest, but it is smaller for the 2120 square feet on that property on Durham. What else am I seeing on that? Okay, let's see. Well, that would be it. Actually, what I mentioned earlier when I was giving the price per square foot there on the property, on the, not price per square foot, but the unit, price per unit would be based on the adjusted sale price, and that would be my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Ramsawak, I'm just looking at the listings of your comps here. So, actually, first I'll ask this question. Looking at comparables 2 to 4 of your brief here, would you agree that economies of scale, we could expect a larger property to sell for a lower value per square foot?
Well, I think that it more or less applied to that number 3 in particular, but the other 2, they're not that much of a difference to have a great difference. And yes, you are seeing 184, and you are right that you use your same reasoning there, and I see that your 184 price per square foot with the subject, and when we look at the ones that are closest to, that is number 2 and number 3, we see that number 2, you have a 164, but I would, it is what is sold for. More than likely the condition was part of what that is all about too, to be a little lower than the rest of them. But when we look at the other 2 then, the last one, number 4 at $213 a square foot, and number 3 at $250 per square foot. Comparable number 2, I have no doubt in my mind, is a superior property in terms of condition.
So comparable to, you're saying it's superior in terms of condition, you're saying that the sizes, there's not too much of a difference.
Well, look, by the same reasoning too, if you look at comparable number 1, right? 2,500 square feet, 2,567, that is $200, 200 square feet larger, but you have a square foot size per square foot that is higher than that of the subject. By the same logic. When I see something like that, I would like to think that the condition would be superior to that of the subject.
Okay. So you would agree then that a property that is of higher condition, better condition, you would agree that they would sell for more?
Well, all the time. The question is by what degree of improvement it would be, right? The degree of condition. Is it 10% greater or higher, superior? Is it 5%? Is it 50%? No, we don't know that. To answer your question, it will only depend on the degree of the condition of the property. So this is why I'm suggesting then that comparable number 1, no doubt, would be superior to that of the subject property. But when you look at it to what degree, right? It's all relative.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, but you are aware that the subject property itself, it's a rental property for housing, so meaning for families with or individuals with low income.
Well, I don't know what your income. I don't think I'm going to go there, but I know that it's 4 units.
Okay.
I don't know what they're earning. There are some people who are earning a lot of money, but because they like how cheap it is and so on, it's their lifestyle.
Okay.
It's more their lifestyle than what they're earning.
All right. So I guess a better question I can ask is, I guess we can reasonably assume that homes rejuvenated for housing size geared to low-income families, we wouldn't expect these homes to be renovated to the same, rejuvenated to the same degree or upgraded to the same degree as your comparables. Would you agree with that statement?
No, how can I agree with that? That's a general statement. We have to have the facts. We have to have all these properties, one different from the other. I don't know their who owns this property. I think it's something housing, right? Manitoba Housing is
Westminster Housing Society.
They too have actually they've been spending a lot of money on renovation of these properties. And by the way, this property here, I thought you and I discussed this, was $50,000 they invested in this property in 2010 or 12 or something like that.
Thank you. Thanks for answering that. I do have a few more questions here. Your comparables 3 and 4, they have full basement finish, whereas the subject property does not. So I just wanted to ask, would you agree that there would need to be an adjustment downwards for comparables 3 and 4 to make it more like the subject property?
Well, actually, good question. But what if I tell you that comparable number 3 only has 180 square feet? How much adjustment would you make? You see, it could be different from 3 to 4. From my record, comparable number 4 actually has 440 square feet of development in the basement, whereas comparable number 3 has 180 square feet. The question is, how much are you using for that? Yes, we don't have the values or don't have the monetary value down. But I can tell you, if you use 180 square feet and you go, these are older properties, these are older areas. It's not like newer areas where it's different.
Okay.
Even as low as $15 per square foot is not unreasonable.
Okay. So I'm just looking at the listings here for 233 Lipton and 112 Lipton. This is just for my own information here, so that I know this kind of going forward. So the listings say that there's a full basement. In my mind, that means that it would cover the floor area of the property, but it's actually less for both 233 Lipton and 112 Lipton.
Which one? Which one are you referring to?
233 Lipton and 112 Lipton. So you're saying that they're not full basements?
Oh, it's got full basements, but I'm talking about the development in the basement.
Oh, okay.
The rec room is what you're talking about. Isn't that what you talked about, the adjustment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's got a rec room, and I just mentioned that rec room is only 180 square feet.
Okay.
In the first one, 233 Lipton. I'm glad I took that information. I don't normally take information for each of these. And 112 Lipton has 440 square feet development.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess I just didn't understand that part. Thank you for clearing that up. I guess another comment about the effective ages that you've put here. Again, I understand that I haven't inspected the property, but looking at comparables looking at all your comparables here, and I just reviewed the listings here. Given the extent of the renovations for comparables 1 to 4, compared to the subject property, again, I didn't inspect the property or anything, but again, I still think we can reasonably expect that a home developed for housing purposes wouldn't have as great of a quality as what your comparables have here. So you still feel that the effective age of 1957 is supported, given that?
Well, it was done at the time when probably, let me see if I can have a date here when it was done. I don't know if I have it. This would have been done at the time when the permit was being closed, and then you have the inspection and so on. This was done a number of years ago. Okay. And if it was done around that time, you normally want to match it with what other sales, whatever properties are selling for, whether then and now. So yes, I think it's a fair effective age until such time that this property is sold if you cannot otherwise. I mean, it's probably they do change in condition over time. I can't say that the property has gotten in less condition since it's been rented. That can happen, but I don't know that.
And you state that the subject property, I've driven past that area as well, you state that it's on a heavy traffic corner. Would you say that in those terms that it's less desirable than the location of it is less desirable than your comps?
Well, purely for residential area, it's a subjective value. You know, some people would love to live on a street like that if they don't have the car, for example, right? It's subjective. Some people would love to live on Broadway rather than living 10 minutes or 15 minutes walking distance in the winter time when they can get the bus right there. So it's subjective, you know. When you have a revenue property, it's different from a single family with kids and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitburn.
Did you inspect the property? You did not?
I did, let's see, in 2012, but that's a long time ago. That's why I say it's very possible property could have changed.
Is that subsequent to the $50,000 investment you're talking about?
That was the time when I was closing the permit or the $50,000 permit, whether it was more or less. You know, they could start with a $50,000 permit. Some people may not spend all of that, other people may have to spend even some more as we go on. But that was a $50,000 permit that I closed in 2012 when they had renovated it maybe a couple of years prior to that.
Do you recall the condition of the property at that time when that money had been spent?
No, I can't. I've seen, you know, so many properties, and we talked about 8-9 years ago.
Did you inspect the 4 comparable
No,
properties? So, sir, how do you talk about condition of the properties then, if you haven't seen them, in order to arrive at a value? I'm a little bit puzzled by that.
Good question. I'll answer that question. Okay. Now, first of all, we take notes of what is going on. We work as a group, right? And as a group, collective group, we put our notes and we describe the property the way it is. So we rely on this kind of information when we go looking at it back again. The other thing that I've done, and you see a lot of red marks on my group here, and that was when I was doing my researches, and so when I see, okay, I was going to say, but I'm sure we weren't looking at it, but that's okay. So that was a red mark, and all those red marks that you see there is describing the condition of these properties. Let me tell you what FAA means, as in across the board here. It means that it's a fair quality. It means it's average condition inside and average condition outside. So I know that those are the things that drive the value. The rest of them are the same. And each time these properties are sold, we update it, we verify the sales. And they say we work collectively, right? So when we verify the sales based on our knowledge and experience, we know what the property has been sold for. We will at that point in time determine whether we are either high or low in terms of the effective age. We also look at the permits whenever we have permits to close. So when we see that, we can make further adjustment. Keep in mind that we know that some properties have been overassessed. We also know that there are properties that have been underassessed. So when they're under assessment, we haven't something sold because we didn't capture all the information. At that time, we were able to verify the sale and make those changes. When we make those changes, hopefully we want it to represent close to this to what it's selling for. More often than not, we try to go below what the properties actually have sold for.
So bear with me for a moment then. Comparable number 2. About the same date, about the same square size, some similarities, and yet it's 330 versus 436 for the property. Or it's 347 versus 476. $100,000 difference. Can you share with us what you might have noted on comparable number 3 that would put it down so low?
Well, keep in mind that that's sold, right? And if it is sold and we had a sale, let's say an assessment that was probably higher or for whatever reason. And when I look at the fair condition and average here, and we look at and a good question, we look at the effective age, I can actually tell you, because I'm looking at that, the assessment on that particular property is more than likely going to be a bit higher than what it is sold for. So what am I telling you? I'm telling you that the condition of that property perhaps doesn't match the assessment. So the question about the subject property, does the condition match the assessment? I inspected property many years ago when I had changed that effective age. Right? It was based on it then, and that market would have shifted up over time. And those kind of characteristics, that information remained there for all these years. And this other property, this one here, I can't tell you much about the sale price or anything like that previously. I can only talk about it right now. And once again, to emphasize, the fact that I'm seeing average condition inside and outside and sure it was sold for 347 suggests to me that this particular comparable was a little high in the assessment.
Thank you. I understand the process from your point of view. Thank you. No further questions?
I just wanted to confirm that the average increase in this area is 3.55.
You got that?
It's Wolseley. Okay, thank you.
You got a good memory, that's what I meant.
I wrote it down.
Okay, Mr. Ramswack, when Mr. Oliveros was asking you questions, I believe you stated that your Comp 2 was the superior one?
Is Comp 2 that it was superior? Did I say Comp 2 was superior, or did I say Comp 1 was superior? I said Comp 1 was superior. If I said Comp 2, it's a slip of the tongue.
Okay.
Right. Because, naturally, I can't say that Comp 1 was superior when, Comp 2 was superior when in fact it's a lower value and everything like that,
Okay, so what makes Comp 1 superior?
Well, what would make it superior? Okay, it's got just a slight difference in age. The location is a little different here. It is in fact $40,000 higher than the subject property. If you look at those two properties in terms of assessment, keep in mind that this property has not been sold, the subject property has not been sold, then it's reasonable to make that assumption, Madam Chair. It's just an assumption.
Okay.
It's a reasonable assumption. I'm saying it definitively.
Do you have yes, I
definitively that it is superior based on the assessment, and I would conclude then that it's superior based on that.
Based on the sale?
Yes.
Do you have the MLS listing for it?
MLS listing of these?
Yeah, for Honeyman. No. Did you read the MLS listing for it?
Did I read the MLS listing? I don't remember, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do you know what the commercial adjacent is on it?
The current one?
What the commercial adjacent is on Honeyman?
I don't know. The map might tell us that. Number one. To ask me, the only thing I can think about is perhaps this building by Home Street, and Home and Kenora. What would be that building by Home Street? I wonder if that's the CMHC, or used to be CMHC had occupied that at one time, a long time ago. Yeah, that's a big, a huge office building there. I don't know if it's CMHC would know or, I don't know who was
So-
that building.
So you gave us the number of units in comparables 1 through 4, but do you know at all how much they are renting for?
No.
No. Okay.
Oftentimes they don't have that kind of information.
Do you know what the subject property is renting for? They've got 4 units?
No, I
No.
don't.
Okay. Do you know what the school is that's located by the subject property?
The school,
Mm-hmm.
Secret, Gordon, something, no, I don't know. I didn't go to school here, so I don't know what you are unless I start looking. No.
Okay, so this property is owned by Westminster Housing Society,
Mhm.
okay? Do you know anything about Westminster Housing
I
Society?
know a little bit. I don't remember all the details about them. Yeah, I know this about Westminster Housing. They do acquire properties predominantly in the West Broadway and around that area. They renovate these properties and they rent them. I think, if I remember sorry right, it's probably a non-profit organization.
Mhm. And they rent to low-income housing.
And
Their
I suspect they do,
properties
yes.
are low-income
Yeah.
housing.
Mhm.
That's who
Yeah,
they're catering to.
that is it, yes.
Okay,
Or we make it affordable housing for people who can't afford a great deal, yes.
right. So your comparables 1 through 4, those are not for low rent. Those are not for low rent.
They're not by Westminster Housing. That's correct.
All right, thank you. Oh, what was the 2018 assessment on this property?
$375,000, I'm not sure.
Okay. And, sorry, one last question. This I think you indicated in 2012 there was the renovation for $50,000?
Yes, in fact.
Yeah. Do you know what that entailed?
Yes. If you give me a moment, I'll tell you.
Sure.
All right, so this is the property to the best of what I know, right? Because I did it. It was converted from a 6-suite rooming house to a 4-unit apartment building. Or certainly, even if you take apartment out to a 4-unit, right? Multi-conversion building. Alterations include reconfiguring the washrooms, bedrooms, and living space for the 4 suites. Insulating the exterior walls, patching and painting the entire 4 units, and relocating stairs to original location on the main floor to the basement, installing windows in the same size opening, some plumbing and electrical work, and installation of a fire alarm system to be done. Let's see, furthermore, we have a little bit for the property. There's a bachelor suite on the 3rd floor, there is a 2 1-bedroom suite on the 2nd floor, and 1 suite on the main floor. Now, I inspected 3 of those suites on that occasion. The entire house was drywall, so which means that in 1917 the house was built, it was built with plaster. In this case, the entire house was drywall, which means that every wall, the interior wall in the entire building was gutted. So I changed the quality of that home from fair to average and down back to fair, but somebody must have changed that once again, because those things will calibrate to different values. And the drywall and ceiling and the concrete floor were all redone. And the exterior was changed to stucco. The house was completely ready for occupancy by the end of 2010, and that's when I changed the effective use as well, and that's what I know about the property.
Okay. Did you inspect that after it was renovated?
Yes, it was after it was renovated.
But you went and inspected it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Now, I inspected it in 2012, that's 7 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. Would you like to give us your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So So subject property, 762 Broadway. It is owned by Westminster Housing Society, roll number 12-090-282-000. On page 1 of my brief, this is just a summary of my report. You can see a picture of the subject property on this page. Going to page 2 of my brief, I know we've kind of gone through, we've kind of described the property already, but just want to give my summary here. The subject building is a 2 and 1/2 story home, currently functioning as a rental property. It's located on the western side of Broadway, south of the Gordon Bell High School soccer field, and on the west side of the Wolseley neighborhood of the city of Winnipeg. The property has a total living area of 2,358 square feet and was built in 1907, and I acknowledge that there has been some extensive renovations done to it to accommodate to make the home livable. The subject site, it's rectangular in shape with an assessed land area of 5,371 square feet with R2 residential zoning. So before I get into my comparables here, I did just want to state that, again, this property is owned by Westminster Housing Society. I had emailed my client and she did communicate to me that when they rejuvenate these properties, they rejuvenate them at minimum to a point to make them to have these properties in livable condition. We've gone through already what Westminster Housing Society is about. We'll go into that into my presentation here. Page 3, I have a Google Map photo of the location of the subject property as well as some of the surrounding, I guess you could say commercial properties. Obviously, as I said, Gordon Bell High School is located across the street from the subject. Now moving on to page 4. So I have attached a summary on page 5 of my I have attached a summary of my comparable sales on page 5. The summary included, it identifies 5 comparable sales. The comparable sales, they indicate a time-adjusted sale price per square foot range of $135 per square foot to $173 a square foot. The average time-adjusted price per square foot of these sales is $162.38 a square foot, and the median is $167.75 a square foot. So getting straight to my value here, we are asking this board to reduce the value from $436,000 to $396,000, or this leads to $168 per square foot. I'm going to go through my comparables now. I want to go to have my number in mind there. So comparables, gone through. Okay, so I did want to state that comparable 1, it has been fully updated, as well as comparables 3 to 5 have also been have had some renovations done to them as well. Comparable number 2, from what I could tell from the listing I wrote, not as extensive of renovations as the other 4 comparables. It has only had a remodel of a bathroom. It didn't really state which one on the listing, and it has had some windows upgraded. So out of my comparable sales, comparable 4, I would say it would be the most comparable to the subject property as best as we can get. There's not too many rental houses that I was able to find on MLS that had 4 units. So I have put a lot of weight in there. Again, another reason being is because there has been quite some work done to it, some updates, and I've also put a lot of the weight of these comparable sales on 524 Clifton Street. That is comparable number 1. And for your reference, I have included photos of my comparable sales on pages 9 to 18 of my brief, and I've generated some maps for you folks to refer to. On page 8, you'll just see an overall map of the location of the comparable sales. So again, based off of my evidence, I believe that an amount of $396,000, or an assessed value of $396,000 is fair, and that works out to a rate of $168 per square foot. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?
No question, Madam Chair.
Questions?
I only did that as just, I didn't do that to make that determination. I
No,
know I was
no.
gonna ask, I know I was going to ask him in the first one.
It's been quite a long afternoon.
That's fine. We've all had longer. Questions?
I just have one question, and that is the Westminster Housing Society, Inc. You say it's low-income housing.
Yes, that's correct.
Do they do any kind of an income test or a means test before people are allowed to rent there?
No, I didn't look that far into it, actually. I just read, what I read was what the company was about on their page and what my client had specified to me in our correspondence. So what I know is that these homes, these rental properties are geared towards low-income families, and the properties are rejuvenated at minimum to make them livable.
Oh, thank you. That's
You're
my
welcome.
only question.
Okay. Just in regards to the Westminster Housing, are they not affiliated with Westminster Church?
That I don't know of as well. Maybe I just skimmed through when I was reading about the company, and I might have missed that. I can say that I'm not aware of that information.
So are you aware, though, that they are a governing body that is trying to improve the living conditions of people living in the area?
Yes.
So your comparables that you provided on page 5 of your brief, 1 through 5, none of those are geared towards low income.
None of them are, no. And I was trying to be as fair as possible here. I mean, the value in this, we can see it is basically in the size of the property. I did chose on the higher range of my comps. They are not geared towards any low income. If I had gotten I did look at all. I did an exhaustive search of listings, and there was nothing within the area that had sold that was geared towards low income. I would 100% agree. If there were sales of that nature, those would be good comparables to use.
Right. But you do share a comparable with the city for 18 Dundurn Place?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So you've got a rent of $2,200 a month, approximately, on Dundurn?
That was as of the sale date.
Right.
So this is all from MLS.
Right. Okay. Do you have what the rental income is on this property?
The rental income is on this property? Yes, I do. Just give me 1 second. I gotta just pull that up. Alright, so for the year ending March 31st of 2018, they were earning a rental revenue of $38,464.
Sorry, 38,000.
464.
Okay. And they've got 4 units in there?
They have 4 units, yes. 1 3-bedroom, 2 1-bedroom, and a bachelor suite from the best from what my client had given to me here.
You don't have a breakdown per month though?
I do have a breakdown per month here for.
Okay, can you tell me what each of the suites are renting for?
Okay, sorry, I thought you meant just for the year for that.
No,
Yes.
no, sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay, so I'm giving you here the rents as of June 1st of 2016. I know I just gave you the rental income for 2018, but there was some post-reference information for June of 17. I guess their system's there. What they're getting per month is $433, $285, $285, and $324. And if you give me 1 second, I'll let you know which one's for the 1-bedroom unit, for the 1-bedroom units, the 3 and the bachelor. You needed that info.
No, that's fine. Thank you. So you had stated you didn't inspect this property.
I didn't do an interior inspection. I did a drive-by inspection of the subject property, and I did a drive-by inspection of each of the comparables as well.
Okay. And based on your drive-by, what would the condition of the subject property be? Exterior, obviously.
The exterior, I'd say it's about average.
When you were speaking with your client, did they indicate what the condition of the property was?
They did not know.
Okay. Did they indicate what the finishing of the property was?
They did not know. And that's on me. I should have questioned them on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Leave it with us.
Thank you.
And 263 Langside.
Okay. For 263 Langside, rule number 120-948-780-00. Another property on West Broadway. Really probably owned by the same, I don't know if owned by the same owner.
Yes, so for this one, I know that we are the agent on record at this time. The property actually sold September of 2019. Did get the names of the new owners. I was not able to get any contact information in order to get any authorization from them. So I'm here just to accept the rec. I was told that was acceptable unless this board has opposing opinions on that end.
Okay. Thank you.
I missed something.
I'm sorry?
I missed something.
Oh, so yeah, so I guess we just need to clear up. You're making a
Yes,
recommendation.
I had made a recommendation. We talked about that. I would make a recommendation to $430,000. I don't know if you are accepting that or if you want to contest
He's
it.
accepting it.
Yeah.
You are, yes.
Oh, you are
She just
accepting
can't hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And what I was saying was, I do know that property sold September of 2019. At this time, I realize that we're on the agent on record. I'll leave it up to this board. We are accepting the recommendation of $230,000, though.
Okay.
Thank you. And was this based on the
Comparables.
comparables? Sorry, panel, did you have any questions?
None.
No, thank you.
Okay. This hearing is concluded.